Now, have you ever felt so hungry you said you'd eat rocks? Well, be careful the next time, unless you really mean it. River rocks with condiments and spices are now a trending dish in Asia. Videos of chefs making stir-fried sudio, which is the name of the dish, are a hit on social media. It's sold at bustling night markets, cooked fresh from the riverbank, and is used in pranks. Some folks in the videos don't know what they're served and spit out that delicacy. A portion of it costs slightly over $2, but some people believe it's expensive as the ingredients can technically be reused. Sudio has its roots in the past, and no, ancient Asian chefs didn't go around picking up rocks to serve them as a delicacy. This tradition isn't about eating rocks, it's about using them to jazz up your soup game. And these aren't just any old rocks lying around. We're talking about those little ones you can find in freshwater streams and rivers full of fish. Centuries ago, when there were no to-go snacks or preservatives to keep food fresh for long, it was a real problem for people who had to move around a lot in boats, especially in the summer. Once they ran out of animals and vegetables, they had to get creative to make sure they had something to eat. They say sudio originated in a landlocked province, where sailors would embark on journeys that stretched for weeks and months down the river and were stranded without supplies. So, when fish wasn't on the menu, these savvy people turned to rocks and pebbles for a flavor boost. The rocks, after chilling in the company of fish, oysters, clams, and all things underwater, absorbed the taste of these delicious river inhabitants. Once they ended up in the cooking pot, they didn't transform into some muddy mess like you would think, but unleashed a burst of fishy goodness. Once motorized vessels came into the province and it became more economically developed, the dish lost its popularity. Hey, but now the world's hardest dish is back, and it seems to leave no one who tries it indifferent. Some say it's the perfect snack for fitness fans, as it has 0 calories but comes with so many flavors. Others believe it's not hygienic, since you can throw the rocks back in the water and then take them out and cook them again. Whatever the case, the preparation process for this dish is quite a show. Ideally, you need to get fresh rocks for it right out of the river. If they stay out too long, they lose all the flavor. So these fresh rocks are fried in lard or animal or plant fat, and the flavor spreads to the oil as well. Then, cooks add garlic, ginger, chilies, shallots, onions, peppers, and whatever spices they might choose. The more veggies you add, the more it reminds you of a warm winter soup. Then the cooks top it off with some salt, black pepper, and chili flakes, and looky here, it's all done. Looks quite simple, so some TikTokers have already tried it at home before the whole craze about the dish. Now, one important note, if you want to try sudio, don't ever chew on the rocks. Slurp upon them, take the most of them, and then throw them away one by one. You can keep them as souvenirs or leave them on the plate. Once you're done with all the rocks, just eat what you have left on the plate as you would eat any other soup. The rocks should leave a distinctive fishy flavor even once they're out. If you aren't ready to have rocks for lunch just yet, how about olive oil coffee for breakfast? This trending drink was made popular by Starbucks and is easy to recreate at home. If you think it's yucky to add fat to your coffee, chances are that you've already done that. Full-fat milk or heavy cream-based cold foam are all fat in your drink. In some countries, like Singapore, it's been traditional to add butter to coffee for decades. Fans of this drink claim that the caffeine absorbs all the fats in the butter, so it gets into your system slower, and this coffee keeps you energized for longer. Now, olive oil has long had a reputation as a healthy wonder maker, so when you consume it in any form, it enriches you with some vitamins and antioxidants. If you're worried that your drink will taste more like olive oil than coffee, opt for the dark roast. It has a more intense chocolatey flavor. Now, if you aren't a coffee drinker, maybe I can interest you in a glass of Pilk. The mix of Pepsi and milk became famous in the U.S. after Lindsay Lohan presented the concept to the world in Pepsi's holiday season ad campaign. The internet couldn't leave this idea hanging, so people started trying it on TikTok and shared their reactions. In the ad, Pepsi is added to a glass of milk in it. In real life, users prefer to pour Pepsi with a handful of ice first and then spice it up with different kinds of milk, like oat and soy. Those who tried it agree that it's not bad, and some people say it's just like Pepsi, maybe a bit creamier. Are you hungry for a cookie by now? And not just any cookie, the Japanese wasp cookie. They're rice crackers with a smattering of wasps in every bite. This snack was invented by a local wasp fan club and cracker baker. Only the bad guys of the wasp world, digger wasps, are used for this peculiar snack. These wasps paralyze other insects to take them to their youngsters and feed them with that prey. But have no worries, they won't do you any bad after they're boiled, dried, and added to the rice cookie mix. People who've tried it share that it comes with a sweet and savory flavor, and the wasps taste somewhat like bitter burnt raisins. Boy. Century eggs are another snack idea from Asia. Those are eggs that have been preserved for a long period of time in a special mix of clay, salt, wood ash, and quicklime. Over time, the outer egg white becomes dark brown or black and gelatinous, and the inner egg yolk turns dark green. Now, those aren't the most attractive-looking colors, but the egg has a rich flavor and is safe to eat. There are no bacteria or mold inside. The eggs usually come as an appetizer with soy sauce. They can be duck, quail, or chicken, and also go under the names of thousand-year eggs, millennium, or skin eggs. They're served as a delicacy for at least several centuries. Legend has it that there was a man who wanted to surprise the lady he liked with duck eggs he left outside for her. She hadn't found them in months, and it looks like when she did, they tasted better than ever. You first. If you ever find yourself in a market in South Korea and feel the smell of seafood with no actual seafood in sight, it must be the Beyondiji stand. It looks like coffee beans, but it's a type of insect, silkworm pupa. You can find it pretty much anywhere, from streets to grocery stores all across the country. It's normally boiled or steamed and tastes savory and a bit fishy. The snack has a crunchy outer shell, and the inside is juicy. There's a more popular salted and spiced version, although some vendors add sugar to it to create a candied version. Silkworms have played an important role in the local culture for centuries for their more obvious silk-making talents. Then, someone had the smart idea to also use them as an available source of protein for people in need. They say not everyone falls in love with it from the first bite, but you can slowly get used to it. Now it's mostly enjoyed by the older generations. Wow, it's lunchtime. You choose a delicious-looking piece of chicken, but oh no, it ends up on the floor instead of your mouth. You quickly pick it up and eat it anyway, because there is the 5-second rule, you know. The bad bacteria simply won't have enough time to hop on your food off the floor if you're fast enough. But is it real, or is it just an urban legend? Some folks like to credit the famous Genghis Khan, the founder and ruler of the Mongol Empire, for the whole thing. According to the tale, if food fell on the floor at banquets, it was fair game as long as Khan said so. His food was supposedly so special that it was good for anyone, no matter where it landed. Back in the day, people didn't know much about those pesky microorganisms and how they could make us sick. So, eating dropped food wasn't really considered taboo. They figured if they wiped off the visible dirt, it was good to go. And that's how the Khan rule came to be. Hey, maybe they just had outstanding immune systems. Meanwhile, let's fast forward to the queen of culinary TV herself, Julia Child. As she whipped up mouth-watering meals on her show, The French Chef, some viewers claimed they saw her drop lamb, chicken, or even a turkey on the floor. But in reality, it was a potato pancake that landed on the stovetop, not the floor. In the spirit of having some fun in the kitchen, Julia famously said, "But you can always pick it up, and if you are alone in the kitchen, who is going to see?" And just like that, the misremembered story became part of popular culture. In real life, when your food hits the floor, it's like a bacteria magnet. That chicken piece is bound to pick up some unwanted microbial hitchhikers. You just can't give your fallen lunch a quick sanitizing session like you would with your hands. As for the 5-second rule, it's not all so simple. Some foods may have a better chance of survival after taking a tumble. Researchers from Rutgers University discovered that moisture, surface type, and contact time all play a role in the degree of cross-contamination. Foods with high moisture levels, like juicy watermelon, are the biggest culprits for contamination. That means they attract more bacteria than any other food tested. And not all environments and surfaces are created equal. Carpet had a low transfer rate in the experiment. Stainless steel and wood had higher transfer rates. In a different study, researchers swabbed the floors around the University of Illinois in the lab, hall, dormitory, and cafeteria to see how many organisms they could find. They were surprised to see very few microorganisms. It was probably because most malicious bacteria like Salmonella, Listeria, or E. coli can't survive without moisture, and the floors were all dry. But even on dry, sterile surfaces, germs relocated onto cookies and gummy bears in less than 5 seconds. For some foods, it takes less than 1 second for the transfer to begin. So, the 5-second rule doesn't really rule after all. It's more of an urban legend and a psychological trick your mind plays on you. Experimental psychologists explain that when it comes to decision-making, we humans don't always go through a rigorous risk-benefit analysis. Nah, we rely on our brain's trusty sidekicks, called heuristics. These little shortcuts help us make lightning-fast decisions based on whatever info we've got at hand. Sometimes these shortcuts can lead us in the wrong direction, though, like in the case of germs. Those are invisible little troublemakers, and food is real and valuable. So when you drop a precious piece of food on the floor, say a yellow peanut M&M, your brain goes like, "Hey, I can't see any germs, so it must be safe to snatch it up." Not every floor snack will make you sick, but it also depends on you. Our immune systems, especially in the very young and the very old, can be a bit more fragile and vulnerable. So it's crucial not to pass on this questionable habit to the little ones. Remember, they're always watching. Another popular food-related myth is that carbs are always bad for you. In reality, some carbs are pretty important because they're converted into fuel for our bodies. You can find those complex carbs, as they're called, in plant-based foods. They're the ones that keep our digestive system happy and our metabolism in check. The real villains are the simple carbs. Manufacturers add them to processed foods like starches and sugars. When we gobble them up, they quickly turn into blood sugar, causing all sorts of havoc. Think sudden spikes, feeling hungry again in no time, and some more serious consequences for your health. The good carbs come packed with nutritional goodies like fiber and bran, which makes them digest slower and release glucose gradually. To make smarter carb choices, try going for whole grain bread alternatives and swap soda for sparkling water. You can also try the plate method. Fill half your plate with fiber-rich, starch-free veggies. Reserve a quarter for starchy delights like potatoes or a fruity treat. And the last quarter is for proteins. Fish, poultry, beans, nuts, eggs, and lentils should become your new dietary besties. Now, frozen or canned fruits and veggies aren't useless like the rumor has it. Studies have shown that frozen, dried, juiced, or canned plant-based foods can be just as nutritious as their fresh counterparts. You just need to keep an eye out for any sneaky added ingredients like sugars, saturated fats, or sodium. High temperatures during the canning process can cause some vitamins, like C and B, to take a hit. But those vitamins can be a bit sensitive to heat and air in general, so they might leave even during regular cooking and storage at home. Some canned foods, like tomatoes and corn, actually release more antioxidants when they're heated up. Now, have you ever tried adding celery to your diet just because eating it is supposed to burn more calories than you take in? Experts say that negative calorie foods are nothing more than a fantastical idea. Sure, the process of munching and digesting celery burns a few calories, but not a significant amount. There may be around 10 calories in a hefty celery stick, but the body only uses 1/5 of that to process it. So it's still a calorie-plus situation. Plus, you'll unlikely survive just on celery, and it's often a gateway to more yummy foods like cream cheese or peanut butter. Hey, tell me about it. Meanwhile, high-fiber, water-dense fruits and veggies, like celery, can indeed have value as weight loss allies. They fill up your stomach and increase satiety, preventing you from gorging on more calories later. But they won't magically burn off the calories you've already consumed. Some people claim that certain foods or beverages make your body work harder. For example, your body needs to warm up cold water to a toasty 98 degrees Fahrenheit. But there's no solid research to support the idea that cold water drinkers burn significantly more calories. Maybe a measly 5 calories if you're lucky. Caffeine, guanine, taurine, and green tea extracts have been touted for their metabolism-boosting properties. But again, we're talking about a tiny boost that could potentially result in losing around 10 pounds over a year. So, looks like the best way to keep your calories under control is to consume fewer of them than you burn through exercise, not just digestion. Carbonated water isn't any worse than its still version. When carbon dioxide and water get together, they chemically react to create a weak acid called carbonic acid. It tickles the same nerve receptors in your mouth as mustard. That's why you get that delightful and prickly sensation. Although carbonated water is a bit acidic, drinking it won't make your entire body acidic. Your kidneys and lungs step in to remove any excess carbon dioxide from your system. And it's not terrible for your tooth enamel. One study found that sparkling mineral water had only a slight impact on enamel compared to still water. It was a whopping 100 times less damaging than a sugary soft drink. So keep your bubbly drink sugar-free, and you should be safe and healthy.
There's a good reason the checkout lines are so tight. Let's say you're waiting there, and after you take one more look at your cart, you see there are certain things you don't really need, so it would be better not to buy them. So you're looking around trying to find a spot to leave them somewhere aside. Good luck with that. Checkout lines are designed like this so you can't find a place to put these items down. So you make the subconscious decision to buy all these things after all. Take a closer look at your cart before getting there, or just stick to the list to avoid this. Also, the checkout line is probably the most tempting part of the supermarket. All those candies, shiny magazines, gums, and cool gadgets are there to grab your attention while you're patiently waiting your turn. Many people just automatically grab something from there while waiting, even though they weren't planning to buy it in the first place. Have you ever seen someone in front of the supermarket washing the shopping carts? Of course not, because no one does it. Yep, shopping carts are really filthy. So many people touch them during just one day, let alone this whole time they have been in the store. It would be good to wash your hands every time after shopping, or you can wipe the handle down before using it. You'll see some stores have wipes right next to the entrance. Spraying water makes fruits and vegetables look pretty, plus it adds weight to them, so you might end up paying more for them. These are the two actual reasons why workers spray them with water. No one does it to keep them fresh. Plus, spraying water won't keep fruit and vegetables fresh. It will just make them rot more quickly. Spraying water on them or not, wash all the fresh fruits and vegetables you buy. You know how you sometimes like to pick up a pear or a peach to see if they're ripe enough and put them back down if not? Well, you're not the only one who thought of that, so stick to washing your hands every single time you come back from the store. Check out the packages of fruits, vegetables, and meat you're buying. Even though you have to be prepared, you won't be able to see everything that's inside. One Reddit user took a picture of bacon so others can see what the visible slice looks like versus the rest of those packed in a way you can't see them well. Another user shared an interesting trick to help them feel how much meat a pack of bacon actually has. And this only works at low temperatures. So the fatty bits become stiffer before the meat does when the bacon is cold enough. That way, if you pick a cold pack of bacon that's kinda stiff and hard to bend, you have one full of fat. If you feel it's kinda squishy and you're able to fold it in half relatively easy, it means there's more meat and less fat. Here's one more interesting Reddit catch. It's not a hack supermarkets use, it's more like a bonus on your vegetables. A whole new ecosystem on your veggies. It's for those situations when you want some extra flavors, but are running out of ideas. Fish you buy in supermarkets is often mislabeled. When it comes to meat, it's pretty lax with testing because you can tell the difference between, let's say, pork and beef relatively easily. But it's harder to do it with fish. Some studies showed that a third of all fish on the market is not labeled properly. That means some expensive pieces such as salmon are replaced by other fish that look similar. The majority of that counterfeit fish is safe to eat, but there are some of it, such as snake mackerel, that can cause not-so-pleasant stomach issues. Don't trust expiration dates so blindly either. Of course, there's a certain number of weeks milk can remain good after packaging. But supermarket meat departments are a different story. They do their labeling there with their own devices, which means regulations are not that strict. In other words, if an item is about to expire, but it still looks good, supermarkets can simply put a new label on it. That means they can extend the expiration date for a couple of days, sometimes even more than a week. If possible, look for the food at the time when it first comes to the shelves, or find some trusted butcher nearby. But if you stumble upon meat or something else that's about to expire or has already passed the due date, you can negotiate for a better price. Just show the product to the staff, and in most cases, they'll be willing to lower the price. They'll probably have to put it on the discount anyway, so this way, it's just easier for them and better for you. So always check the expiration date. Pay attention to this because supermarkets mostly won't get shut down after they fail an inspection. Inspections are way more focused on restaurants, so you're more likely to hear a restaurant closed because they fail health standards rather than a grocery store. So going to a small local bakery instead of buying supermarket bread and generally trying smaller local businesses might not be a bad idea. These guys usually care a lot about their reputation. This hack grocery stores use is not so gross, but it's still worth knowing. They mostly place expensive stuff at eye level. Most of the population is right-handed, so most of us do the same movement reaching for stuff we want to buy. So things that will bring supermarkets the most profit are right there, at eye level, front and center. Sometimes there will even be some additional colorful markups on these more expensive products that will make you buy them before even checking the others. So look to the side and look up to find better deals. Don't just grab the first thing that gets into your visual field. Also, things that are geared towards kids are placed a little bit lower, so they're at eye level too. One Redditor shared a photo from one supermarket where they had to cut out the bottom of laundry baskets so shoplifters don't fill them up and walk out. Another commentator said this is just a display version. That way, if you want to make a purchase, employees will go to the back room and send the basket to the registers for when you're ready to pay. It feels so exciting when you're going through those colorful newspaper inserts with special discounts. But they don't make these to save you money. Their main purpose is to make you buy things you don't really need, but you'll get them anyway because you believe they're on sale. Double-check all the coupons you're about to use. Sometimes the special price they advertise is the same as the regular price without the coupon. Bulk buying deals might sound great at first, but they can be a trap. First, the price difference between individual products and those in bulk doesn't have to be that big, and you might end up buying way more stuff than you need. That means that either you'll buy too much, so the items might go bad before you have a chance to use them, or you might eat and drink way more than you usually would. And neither of these options sounds good, and it's definitely not saving money. For example, one Reddit user noticed there's a pack of 4 blades instead of 5, even though the price is the same and they haven't even changed the packaging. Check the prices of packages considering their weights too. One Redditor shared a photo of their catch, which might be tasty, but also quite expensive considering the size of the package. They usually shop for groceries online, and since this week was pretty stressful, they were tired and didn't check how tiny this block of cheese was.
Over 100 years ago, an 11-year-old boy left his drink on a porch during a cold night. The glass was filled with powdered soda dissolved in water and a stirring stick to mix it up. 20 years later, Frank Epperson, that very forgetful boy, presented his accidental invention, the Popsicle, in a California park. There's no record of the original popsicle flavor, but among the very first were cherry, the most popular one, lemon, orange, banana, watermelon, grape, and even root beer. Chocolate chip cookies are somewhat younger than popsicles, having been invented in the 1930s. Ruth Wakefield, the owner of a popular restaurant named the Toll House Inn, is considered to be the inventor of these scrumptious cookies. There are various stories behind this invention. One story claims that Ruth ran out of baker's chocolate and decided to replace it with some basic semi-sweet chocolate, expecting it would melt completely, but it didn't. Another story says some chocolate just accidentally fell into the batter. Ruth denied the accidental origin of her cookies, claiming that it was all done deliberately. There are many legends behind the creation of the potato chip. One claims they were invented in 1853 by a chef at a luxurious New York restaurant. French fries were one of the specials at this restaurant, and people seemed to love them. But there was one customer who wasn't satisfied with the quality, complaining they were too thick. When the chef, George Crumb, not crummy at all, cooked thinner French fries, the picky customer complained again. George deliberately made his next batch of fries paper thin. These fries were so thin, it was impossible to eat them with cutlery. Surprisingly, the finicky eater loved the dish. The chips recipe spread, and within a few decades, potato chips could be found in all the American grocery stores, turning from a hot dish to a fast snack. Worcestershire sauce is another product that wasn't invented deliberately. Two English chemists, John Willie Lee and William Henry Perrins, simply forgot about some barrels in the pharmacy basement for a couple of years. The first mixture they had made was totally inedible due to super strong flavor. But when they forgot some barrel of the mixture in the basement, it became fermented. When the chemists rediscovered the barrels and were curious to try it, they found that the taste had mellowed. This condiment is now used to intensify even those dishes that originally didn't have it. For example, chili con carne. Worcestershire sauce is part of the fifth flavor, umami, or savoriness, which explains its rich taste. Tofu, or bean curd, was invented centuries ago. One of its origin theories is that tofu was first created by a Chinese prince. Another theory claims that tofu appeared as a result of mixing boiled ground beans and sea salt. The salt was quite impure and probably contained calcium and magnesium. These ingredients let the bean mixture produce its curd-like consistency. One more legend says that some nigiri, a sort of evaporated sea salt, was accidentally dropped into soy milk. Today, doctors tell you to stay away from Coca-Cola, but it was surprisingly invented by John Pemberton, who had a medical degree and was a pharmacist. Pemberton's French wine coca was initially used as a remedy for severe pains, headache, and as a nerve tonic. In 1886, a prohibition law was introduced, and John had to change the recipe to remove the alcohol. One thing was left unchanged though, the cola nut that gave the drink its trademark flavor. Some legends say that John only accidentally added carbonated water to the new recipe, but in fact, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Pemberton thought bubbles were a savory alternative to alcohol. John's Cola is definitely the Coke precursor, but today's drink differs from the original Pemberton's recipe. The sandwich was invented by accident too. Back in the 1700s, John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, ordered his valet to make him a simple dish that could be eaten with no cutlery at all. He asked the valet to tuck some meat in between 2 loaves of bread. Lord Sandwich was particularly addicted to playing cards, and this dish let him eat without stopping the game. The cards didn't get greasy either. People started asking to bring the same as sandwich to their games, and soon the dish had its common name. The tomato ketchup we ate today is such a modified version that it actually has nothing to do with original ketchup recipe. You can trace its roots back to the 17th century, when the Chinese mixed pickled fish and spices, calling it a word that sounded a bit like ketchup, and which meant the brine of pickled fish. The English first tried this sauce about 100 years later. The British version featured mushrooms, shallots, and even walnuts. Later, the word ketchup changed its meaning and could be used for any dark-colored sauce. The first tomato ketchup had anchovies among its ingredients, which hints back to its relation to the Chinese fish sauce. Nachos aren't some ancient Mexican food. They were invented less than 100 years ago. Ignacio Anaya, nicknamed Nacho, is said to have invented this dish in the 1940s. Ignacio was a chef, and one day a regular customer asked if Ignacio could bring her and her 3 friends something different as a snack. He saw how hungry the ladies were and decided to cook something quick for them. He had to improvise using available ingredients. So, he grabbed some fried tortillas, grated loads of cheese on top of them, and heated the dish from above. To make the dish more savory, he added some jalapeno peppers on top. The very regular customer asked the name of the unusual snack. Ignacio didn't think long and said, "Nachos Special." Cheese puffs used to be a waste product in the 1930s. Edward Wilson noticed some oozing corn in one of the machines at a factory that produced flake food for animals. Those ribbons seemed interesting, so Edward decided to take them home and try to season them. He also noticed that the puffy corn hardened if it was exposed to air. The experiment turned out to be a success, so it was later developed into a world-famous snack. Now, instant noodles weren't invented by mistake, but there were several mistakes while inventing them. The main idea was to create something with a long shelf life. After several unsuccessful attempts, Momofuku Ando invented the method of preserving the noodles. They were processed in various ways, like steamed, dehydrated, fried in hot oil, and seasoned. And instant noodles used to be a luxury product, since they cost way more than the fresh noodles everyone was used to. Another product that was invented unwittingly is yogurt. It first appeared in Central Asia thousands of years ago. Some herders stored milk in a place with an abundance of bacteria without knowing it. The milk was fermented, and it resulted in a thicker texture and flavor change. One of the herders wasn't scared of that kind of dish and tried it. Nothing bad happened to him, so other people started eating it too. Today, pink lemonade has that nice color because of grape juice or added colorants. But there are 2 legends of how it was invented, and both feature circus workers. The first story alleges that Henry Allott, who worked in a circus, unwittingly dropped a few red cinnamon candies in the lemonade, which gave it that vibrant pink color. The other story is gross. It claims that circus worker Pete Conklin one day ran out of water for lemonade and instead used the water from the tub where one of his colleagues had washed her red stockings. The color of the pants turned the water pink. Pete added some sugar, slices of lemon, and acid. He called it strawberry lemonade. The customers liked it a lot, and his sales doubled. Yes, the people were panting for the stuff. The tarte tatin, which is a caramelized upside-down version of an apple pie, was cooked for the very first time by mistake. 2 sisters, Stephanie and Carolyn Tatin, ran a hotel in the 1800s. One day, Stephanie wanted to cook a simple apple pie, but she stewed the apples in butter for too long. To conceal her mistake, she put the crust on top of the apples and put it in the oven. When she took the pie out of the oven, she noticed several burn marks. It was a bad cooking day. She didn't want the guests to notice, so she flipped the pie over and presented it as a brand new recipe. Surprisingly, the guests just loved the pie, which soon became their signature dessert. Okay, gotta go. I'm really hungry.
The national Jamaican fruit, Ackee, has a truly unique taste. It's mild and buttery, and people who tried it say it tastes just like scrambled eggs. It's safe to eat Ackee only as long as it's fully ripe. so the import of raw Ackees was banned in the US almost 50 years ago. The only edible part is the white creamy flesh itself. The pink flesh looks mouthwatering, but don't fall for it, it's highly toxic. Same with the black seeds. Soursop is one more fruit banned from the US because of its toxins. It's also referred to as guanabana and can release toxic substances, leading to some very unpleasant effects if not ripe. Soursop fans, don't be sad. Chances are you might find some frozen pulp in supermarkets. Another thing that should be 100% ripe to be safe is elderberry. Raw elderberry is rich in vitamin C, which is good for you, and cyanide, which is not that good. These berries are quite popular though. You can find them in pies, syrups, teas, jams, you name it. Fully ripe and cooked berries aren't dangerous. And nope, it's not banned. Cyanide doesn't seem that serious when it comes to food with tetrodotoxin, which is 1,200 times stronger. Pufferfish is a Japanese delicacy, and it's loaded with the substance. No person can eat this fish without consequences, but Japanese chefs have mastered their skills to perfection. To make it edible, they simply remove the poisonous parts. This delicacy is called Fugu and costs about $200 per portion. You could buy a whole bunch of totally safe salmon instead. It's almost completely banned in the US. There are only a few authorized places that sell it, but you probably don't feel like having such a gastronomic adventure either way. Casu marzu literally means rotten cheese. Sorry, you can't try a bite of it in the US, so in case you can't resist the temptation, just head to the island of Sardinia, Italy. In fact, it's just sheep milk cheese with a pinch of, let's say, magic. Special flies leave their eggs right inside that cheese, and they stay there for 40 days. At the moment it's ready for consumption, this cheesy delicacy has some live maggots taking care of decomposing it. Thanks to them, the cheese has that distinctive texture and spicy flavor. It's banned in the US for sanitary reasons. Unlike soft and creamy casu marzu, the Himalayan cheese Chirpy is famous for being the world's hardest. Just like any regular product of this type, it's made from milk. What makes it different is that it stays fresh for up to 20 years. The milk is quite special too. The cows, which are actually a cross between cows and yaks, eat a variety of mountain herbs. This milk has a unique flavor thanks to those herbs, but be careful with your teeth nibbling on that hard as stone cheese. In Singapore, you'll never have cavities because of chewing gum. And nope, it's not because they take care of your teeth. The thing is, it's completely illegal there. This place is known for its cleanliness, and the country spent a fortune cleaning all the spots and banning chewing gum. It was prohibited back in 1992, and vendors had to stop the sales immediately to avoid super high fines. Walking down the supermarket aisles while traveling to different destinations, you may spot that there's no raw milk in stock. It's prohibited in many US states and other countries, including Canada, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Scotland, for sanitary reasons. While raw milk is a no-go for Scotland, haggis is completely fine there. Still, it's banned in the US. If you live in the States and you're under 45, chances are you've never tried haggis, since it was prohibited almost half a century ago. This Scottish pudding is made of a full range of sheep's inner parts, mixed with some oatmeal and spiced up with a bunch of minced onions. Oh, and don't forget suet and some broth. The texture is crumbly and coarse, and no surprise, the dish is quite spicy. It's usually served with mashed potatoes or mashed turnip. Cassava is a poisonous tropical root with two types. The sweet variation does contain some cyanide, but it's enough to cook it to reduce the toxic content to a non-toxic level. To get rid of all the toxins in bitter cassava, it's necessary to grate the root, then soak it, and finally cook properly to make it edible. This root is very starchy, and its flavor is really subtle. Cassava can be used just like potatoes, mashed, boiled, or fried.
What you think? How about some haggis with mashed cassava instead of potatoes on the side?
By the way, harmless potatoes aren't that safe either. It all depends on whether it's ripe or not. So-called green potatoes are full of toxins, and potato sprouts are also quite unsafe. Same with green almonds and cashews, which are full of cyanide if not ripe enough. Luckily, the nuts we get at the supermarket are well processed, which means they're completely safe. Yellow plums, or Mirabelle plums, are banned in all the 50 states of America. These fruits are completely fine, and nothing bad happens if you eat them. But you can only enjoy these plums in Lorraine, France. The importation law is a bit bizarre, and this fruit is of protected origin. If Seabass is the kind of dish you just can't live without, then the UK isn't your destination. This fish has been recently banned there because of declines in the sea bass population. The same goes with beluga caviar in the US. One of the world's most expensive foods can't be found in America because of new regulations protecting the fish. Hey, feel like a burger with freshly cooked meat, the softest bun, and loads of ketchup? Go and grab it. Unless you're a French school student, there's a law in France regulating the use of ketchup in cafeterias for students, and they're only allowed to have it with, you guessed it, French fries. Greenland shark bodies get rid of all the waste they produce, filtering it through their flesh and skin, so no wonder their flesh is toxic. Sounds like a fair reason not to eat them, but not in Iceland. Hakarl, which is processed shark meat, is first hung to dry for 3 to 5 months. In the end, you get something like ammonia-smelling fermented fish with the jelly texture that reminds you of wet bread. Some things get better with age, unless it's food. But there's one cafe in Bangkok where they've been cooking the same beef and noodle soup for 45 years. This potion-like soup has been simmering for over 4 decades. The broth has never been thrown away, and it's always kept overnight for the next day's servings. One of the secrets of the unique flavor is the massive grease rim around the pan that formed because they never washed it. Okay, now I've got the perfect excuse to do the same thing. What? The food just tastes better this way. In Cambodia, you can try a crunchy, crispy snack that tastes somewhat like a crab. It's deep fried and a bit seasoned. The main ingredient is a tarantula. This doesn't quite sound like a lunch. Okay, well, you wouldn't have guessed it if I hadn't told you. This soup that sounds like a tongue twister is definitely scrumptious. The flavor is sharp, yet delicate, and it tastes just like shrimp. Well, this traditional Laotian dish sounds really cool, until you realize it's made of ant eggs. To give it a bit of sourness, they also tend to add a few tiny ants. In Mexico, you don't throw away corn kernels that have turned black because they're rotten. You keep them as a culinary specialty called huitlacoche. Fungus all over the kernel give that earthy, woody smell. Yum, yum. Some dishes just need decoration, especially cakes and pies. In England, there's a pie called stargazy. The name speaks for itself. The sardines, accompanied by potatoes and eggs, peek out of the pie's crust and stare at the skies. And it looks a bit creepy. Sometimes it's the tails that point at the skies, though. Tea mushroom is another weird thing that they drink in Eastern Europe, together with acid milk-based drinks. It's basically some fermented black or green tea. It's made by adding a whole culture of bacteria. They're not consumed, they just ferment the drink. To sweeten tea, the sugar acts like yeast. Add juice, spice, or whatever you want to taste. Enjoy! Or at least try to. Tuna eyeballs are quite a popular delicacy in China and Japan. They need to be boiled before eating, and some seasoning is required too. If you nail it, you'll have a delicacy that tastes like squid. And it costs less than $1. I bet you're eyeing that one. Let's face it, chocolate is a lie. I mean, not everything we call chocolate is real chocolate. There are regulations that can help understand what you're eating. So it can either be chocolate or compound chocolate, which tastes great too, by the way. The main thing about real chocolate is that it's made of cocoa mass and cocoa butter. If the packaging reads cocoa powder and vegetable fat, sorry, it's only compound chocolate. The real one should contain at least 35% cocoa solid and about 18% cocoa butter. So if you have these two variations and try them at the same time, you'll probably find the compound one a bit tastier, as it has various flavorings. And no wonder compound chocolate seems to be way more popular than the real type. First off, it's cheaper. Also, it's easier to store, as it tends not to melt at room temperature. Right, so what about white chocolate? Is it real or compound? Actually, it's neither. It's not even related to chocolate. While compound chocolate has cocoa particles, white chocolate has zero. Yep, it has cocoa butter, but it's a bit different. The cocoa butter doesn't give it its signature flavor. Also, real chocolate contains certain compounds that trigger our brains, making us happy. As you might have guessed, white chocolate can't do the same. Any Nutella fans in here? We all know it's hazelnut cocoa spread, but have you ever wondered how many nuts each jar contains? The company once provided official info on it, stating that each jar contains about 50 hazelnuts. That may seem a lot, but it only makes up about 13% of the whole content. Sugar and palm oil take first place, making up 50% of all the content of Nutella. Fun fact here, the original recipe was way more nutty. Nutella was inspired by gianduja, the traditional Piedmont recipe. It was changed several times over the last couple of centuries. At the end of the 18th century, it was a blend of chocolate with 30% hazelnut paste. And it had several interpretations. This early Nutella prototype could be used as a filling for chocolates, or even eaten in the form of bars. The mid-20th century interpretation had a whopping 71.5% of hazelnuts, and only about 19.5% of chocolate. Now moving on to another global commodity. I'm talking about coffee. First things first, let's debunk one myth. There's no 100% decaffeinated coffee. Any coffee that has at least 97% caffeine removed is already considered to be decaf. By the way, there are a couple of different ways of removing caffeine. The first method involves a special solvent. The coffee beans are washed in it, and once the caffeine is removed, the solvent gets washed off. The second method, called the Swiss water process, involves carbon dioxide or a charcoal filter. Now here's a fun fact. Your morning coffee is stewed fruit. Coffee beans are a berry pit, so it's basically a drink made of berries. Now for a bit of heartbreaking math. Imagine that you have a bag of nachos or chips and it costs you $10. Do you know how much you paid for your snack? Only about $1.40. Where are the $8.60 then? You paid for the air in the bag. Research revealed that there's a brand selling mostly air and very few chips. Don't worry, not all the bags are that air-packed, but still, there's always way more air than snacks. Instant noodles may not have any hidden lies, but they have a pretty cool story. Let's kick off with myth debunking. They say instant noodles were invented in Japan, but it's not so. The modern variation is for sure Japanese, but the very first ancient prototype was invented in China. Those were noodles that were fried and then served in soup. There's a legend telling that a chef put the already cooked noodles to boil again. To rescue them, he took them out of the pan and fried them in hot oil. The modern Japanese version was invented to prolong its food shelf life. After several unsuccessful attempts, Momofuku Ando, the inventor, came up with a method of preserving noodles. They were processed in various ways. They were steamed, dehydrated, fried in hot oil, and seasoned. In the beginning, instant noodles were considered to be a luxurious product, since they cost way more than the fresh noodles everyone was used to. We all love lemonade, and there are many variations of this drink. Today, pink lemonade has that nice color because of grape juice or added colorants. There are two legends of how it was invented, both of them featuring circus workers. The first story alleges that Henry Allott, who worked in a circus, unwittingly dropped a few red cinnamon candies in the lemonade, which gave that vibrant pink color. Another story is a bit gross, claiming that Pete Conklin, who was a circus worker too, one day ran out of water for lemonade and used the water from the tub where one of his colleagues had washed her red stockings. They faded and colored the water pink. Pete added some sugar, slices of lemon, and tartaric acid. He called it strawberry lemonade. The customers liked it a lot, and his sales doubled. Ugh. Sorry to break it to you, but nachos aren't some ancient Mexican food. They were invented less than 100 years ago. Ignacio Anaya, nicknamed Nacho, is said to have invented this dish in the 1940s. There's a nice story behind nachos. A regular customer got hungry and asked if Ignacio could bring her and her 3 friends something different that day. He saw how hungry the ladies were and decided to cook something quick for them. He had to improvise using available ingredients. So he got some tortillas, grated loads of cheese on top of them, and heated the dish from above. To make the dish more savory, he added some jalapeno peppers on top. Mamie Finnan, that very regular customer, asked what was the name of that unusual snack. Ignacio didn't think long and said the name was Nachos Special. The family of citruses has more intricate love stories than any rom-com. It actually reminds me more of a soap opera, like Dynasty. It may seem that an orange is a mandarin's dad, probably due to their sizes, but in reality, it's quite different. Limes and lemons aren't half-brothers either. They have way more differences than just the color. Grapefruit always seemed to be a sort of outcast of the family, and we'll talk about them too. Sweeties and pomelos seem to be those distant relatives you hardly ever see. So, here's their family tree. The orange is the the hybrid of a pomelo and a mandarin. It's about 25% of the pomelo genome and about 75% of the mandarin one. Grapefruit is a hybrid of sweet orange and pomelo. Lemons may seem all independent, but in reality, they're just another hybrid between bitter orange and citron. And yeah, the lime we eat is hybrid too. In the wild, there are various evergreen trees of different types whose fruits we may call limes, but we mostly eat cultivated ones. Actually, there are many more distant citrus relatives you've never even heard of, like Tangelo. Not hard to guess that it's a cross of a tangerine and a pomelo. Or Orangello, a cross between a grapefruit and an orange. An almond is often mistaken for a nut. A nut should be dry, yet almonds have a fleshy layer. While growing on a tree, they look like a peach. So when you open it, you see a seed inside the inedible fleshy layer, and this is the almond we all know. If a strawberry fast food milkshake sounds like a safe and pretty healthy option for you, you might want to reconsider it. According to research, a regular strawberry milkshake may have about 59 ingredients in total. Thing is, it's pretty hard to recreate the original strawberry flavor, and it requires many ingredients to do so. Many people try to store different types of food in the fridge, just in case. It seems like the smartest decision to extend a product's lifespan, but it's not that simple. For some foods, the fridge can be harmful. For example, sauces. If the package doesn't say otherwise, it's better to keep them outside the fridge. You can put them in a cupboard that is far from your oven to protect sauces from temperature changes. The worst enemy of coffee beans is moisture. Special oil in coffee beans is responsible for that pleasant and cozy coffee smell. When you place your coffee in the fridge, condensation changes its entire cell structure and makes all the magic disappear. But if your goal is to get off caffeine, maybe it is a good idea to store your beans in the cold. Rumor has it that honey is an immortal food. You can store it almost forever, but make sure to do it properly. Keep honey in a cold and dark place, but don't put it in your fridge. Otherwise, it may crystallize and lose some of its major beneficial properties. Putting tomatoes into the fridge seems pretty harmless, but it's not the best idea. It will make tomatoes lose their delicious flavor because cold air slows down the natural ripening process. Thus, the thin membranes inside of the tomatoes get less juicy. And you don't want your salad to be watery and tasteless, do you? The best way to store tomatoes is in a well-ventilated box or basket at room temperature. If you want to keep sliced bananas from getting brown, use citrus juice. Just drizzle orange or lemon juice over the cut bananas. Unfortunately, this trick only works for a few hours. The perfect way to store your chocolate is inside your stomach. Just kidding. Keep it away from the fridge and store it in a cool, dark place. This way you don't only protect your dessert from your sweet tooth roommates, but also keep its attractive appearance. It's not a good idea to put your chocolate in the fridge, because the temperature difference will create some condensed water on the surface of the chocolate bar. And keeping it away from the fridge is safer for your teeth. Chocolate tends to harden at low temperatures, which makes each bite more difficult. Don't keep your hummus at room temperature. It doesn't matter whether it's homemade or pasteurized. In both cases, it's not safe. If the hummus is traditional and doesn't contain any preservatives, its lifespan is up to 1 week. As for unopened supermarket hummus, you can store it in your fridge for about 3 months and for 1 week once you've opened it. Let's say you've just baked the perfect cookies. It's time to put them in a jar or container. Unfortunately, the cookies will eventually lose that precious out-of-the-oven feel and keep getting harder and harder as the days go by. But if you add a slice of bread to that same container, the cookies will keep their soft texture for much longer. That's because cookies will absorb moisture from the bread. People usually wrap cheese in plastic packages, but this solution is far from perfect. Plastic wrap attracts too much moisture, which creates an ecosystem for mold to grow and prosper. If you want to protect your cheese from this bitter scenario, sprinkle it with vinegar, but don't use more than a few drops. Otherwise, it'll ruin the original taste of your cheese. After that step, wrap your cheese tightly in wax paper and put it in the fridge. There are no special rules about eggs. It's safe to store them both inside and outside the fridge, as long as their expiration date is fine. It's important to make sure the temperature is stable and consistent. If your choice is to put eggs in the fridge, don't keep them on the side shelf. To protect them from temperature fluctuations, put the eggs deeper in the fridge. Also, experts don't recommend removing the eggs from their package. These containers are actually meant to extend the lifespan of the eggs. Yes, the temperature is not equal all over your fridge. The shelves on the door are the warmest area, for example. And the closer the shelf is to the freezer, the lower the temperature gets. So, if you want to create perfect food distribution inside your fridge, don't skip the specific storage recommendations that are mentioned on some packages. If you store a loaf of bread in the supermarket package, get ready to see some mold in a couple of days. It's better to keep your bread in a firmly closed box with a little bit of salt. This tip will protect it from the mold. Also, avoid keeping bread in the fridge because cold air will make it stale very quickly. But when you need to save bread for a long time, you can put it in the freezer. This way, it'll stay fresh for up to 6 months. If you want to keep sliced cucumbers from drying out, put them in an airtight container and pour fresh water in it. Don't store them in the fridge for more than a week. As for the whole cucumbers, keep in mind that they rot in the cold air way faster than at room temperature. If you want to keep them fresh for as long as possible, store them outside the fridge. Avocado is a tricky fruit with tricky storage rules. If your avocado is hard and not fully ripe yet, keep it away from the fridge because cold air will slow down the ripening process. Bananas emit high levels of ethylene, which helps avocados ripen faster. So, if you want to accelerate the process, put it in a bag with 1 or several bananas. At the same time, if your avocado is soft and ripe, storing it in the fridge will keep it from going bad. Some people prefer wrapping cut avocado in plastic wrap together with a slice of onion. This tip helps the fruit to stay fresh longer. Another way is to cover it with olive oil. Keep in mind that cut avocado can be stored in the fridge for no longer than 3 days. Keep your onions and garlic away from the fridge. Low temperatures will cause mold way faster. If you want to keep them fresh for a long time, store them in a cool, dry place. For example, in the kitchen cupboard. And if you don't mind some country house style in your kitchen, tie the onions to one another and keep them hanging. Also, avoid storing oranges and other citrus fruits in the fridge. Unfortunately, low temperatures make these fruits less tasty and less beneficial for your health. You can store them in a fruit bowl, on a shelf, or kitchen table. Don't worry, this won't speed up their rotting. Just like many other vegetables, eggplants don't like low temperatures. In the fridge, they get soft and lose their good qualities way faster. Keep these veggies away from direct sunlight in some dry space at room temperature. If you've sliced an apple, but you don't want to eat it right away, here's a tip. Put a rubber band around the slices to hold them together. It'll keep the apple from turning brown. This fruit will stay fresh and crispy for as long as a whole month when stored in a moisture-resistant bag in a fridge. It's advised to avoid washing apples before storing them, as it might cause spoilage. Never put olive oil inside your fridge. If you've made this mistake before, you've probably noticed those weird white pieces inside the oil. Don't worry, it's not toxic. In fact, low temperatures in the fridge cause water condensation, which looks like unpleasant impurities. It's better to keep your olive oil at room temperature and far from direct sunlight. Watermelons and other melons, kept at room temperature, contain more beneficial nutrients and antioxidants compared to those kept in the fridge. But once you cut your watermelon, it's better to store it in the fridge. Use plastic wrap to cover the cut side tightly and replace it each time you cut your watermelon. Also, you can cut your melon or watermelon in smaller slices and store them in an airtight container in your fridge for up to 1 week. Freezing ginger will allow you to keep it fresh for 2 to 9 months and maintain its quality. You can also grate it in advance so you can take 1 spoonful at a time. This will save you time, especially on those busy days when you need to prepare something fast.
From the iconic golden fries to a broken ice cream machine, here are 10 fast food secrets that the fast food industry doesn't really want you to know. Chicken nuggets. Those golden crispy bites you can get from fast food chains. They're even on the menu of school lunches. What if I tell you that they aren't actually made entirely out of chicken? Researchers took chicken nugget samples from unnamed fast food chains and analyzed them. They said that one sample, for instance, contained only 40% and another 50% of meat. The rest? Well, you're eating mouthfuls of things like fat, connective tissue, and bone spicules. Many fast food companies grind the meat with that stuff. They make mechanically formed orbs of chicken parts. Why? Perhaps it's because this method is cheaper and more profitable. Millions of restaurants worldwide have chicken nuggets on their menu. So, scientifically, it's not fair to say all nuggets are made this way, but a lot of studies imply so. The more the meat is processed, the more you lose the good stuff, like vitamin B6 and B12. The bitter truth is that companies add stuff, such as sodium, to the mixed paste. Sodium is added to get a better flavor. It's one of the ingredients that makes nuggets so yummy. Our bodies need sodium, but not too much of it. Unfortunately, most junk food contains more than our bodies can handle. So it might be a safe option to avoid eating these sorts of foods frequently. Chains dip their nuggets into tempura batter and fry them in hydrogenated oil. That's also not a green light regarding health, but this is how they catch the golden tint. They put additional stuff in nuggets. What about grilled chicken? In recent years, we've seen brands highlighting grilled chicken as a healthier option. Research has been done about grilled chicken too. And the same approach is applied here. Take chicken samples from iconic fast food companies and send those to labs for analysis. The results show that companies are misleading people by advertising these products by labeling them as healthy, natural, and 100% chicken breast. In reality, a couple of things are added to the meat to make it tender and juicy. Plus, these additives make it easier to cook the meat, freeze and transport it, and reheat it later without losing too much moisture. The drawback of all these additives is that they affect the nutritional value of the chicken breast. These ingredients aren't the healthiest for us. We should especially watch out for 3 things. The first one is again sodium. Fast food samples had 7 to 10 times more sodium than home-cooked chicken breast. Imagine you have a cheeseburger, but you say no to yourself and try to pick a less harmful menu item. Yet, some chicken sandwiches have the same amount or even more sodium than a cheeseburger with medium fries. The second thing you need to watch out for is phosphate additives. These additives allow the protein to conjoin more water. This means the white meat in the sandwich will appear juicier to you. Any word you see in the ingredients section that contains phos is a phosphate additive, so it's best to avoid them. The last thing you should avoid is sugars and starches. not just in grilled chicken, but pretty much in all fast food products. Oh, that's hard to digest, I admit. Cornstarch, sugar, malt, they come with grilled chicken breast. Buns and even some fries have sugar too. Everywhere I look, it's sugar. You see, home-cooked chicken has 0 grams of carbs, but the study samples had added sugar, and up to 10% of the calories in the chicken breast comes from there. So what's the moral of this story? If you're a health-conscious diner, you should maybe go for other options. There are secret recipes from companies like KFC and Coca-Cola. No company wants to share the ingredients that make their food irresistible, but with a little research, you can decipher many things. You want to know the secret of McDonald's fries? It's written on their website. They add beef flavoring to the frying oil. This may sound weird, but apparently, that's a known practice amongst chefs and restaurants. Duck fat has also been used as a flavor, for example, in high-end restaurants. I'm a fries lover, so I added another fact about fries. Sadly, they're even saltier than you think. Experts suggest that a grown-up should consume at most 2,300 milligrams of sodium daily. Guess the McD's large fries sodium number. At least 400 milligrams. Classic fries from Burger King have 732 milligrams, and Five Guys take the level even higher with 962 milligrams of sodium. Next time, maybe you can ask workers to go easy on the salt as a solution. Picture this. You're in a hurry, but your tummy says, "Feed me, or I'll affect your mood and make life miserable for you." For a quick snack, you enter a fast food chain restaurant. You order your favorite burger. It looks and smells as if it's just been taken from the grill and served. Nope. They have different types of grills designed for this that can cook meat super quickly. Sorry to bear the bad news, but those perfect grill marks on your burger aren't real tools. The factory adds them. If you want to know how clean an eatery is, look under the ice chute of the soda machine in places where you can get your own drink. There you go, Inspector. You solved the case. Various studies say that if such machines aren't cleaned correctly, dirty, contaminated ice can lead to some health problems. There could be mold or bacteria there. Ew. The process of cleaning ice machines isn't easy. The same thing applies to ice cream machines too. Rumor has it that those ice cream machines aren't out of order. Employers just cannot find time to clean them properly. Now, what's the best time to get a good and fresh meal? Here are 2 opinions, and they both have solid reasonings. The first team recommends avoiding ordering grilled food in chains from 7 to after midnight. Many former employees say that sometimes they had taquitos or hot dogs prepared at around 4 or 5 a.m., but kept waiting to serve them till around midnight. That's not healthy. The other team says you should order between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. or between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. to get the freshest meal. Since it's going to be around lunch and dinner time, there'll be circulation and you can get decent food. Fast food companies have marketing, design, and psychological tricks to lure you in and make you order. Yet, they don't want you to stay inside for too long. If you were dining in mood lighting, you know under dim lamps and candlelight, you would take your time to eat. As the name suggests, you should be fast like your food in chain restaurants. They have fluorescents and they're in full light. Similarly, the floors and tables have reflective surfaces that make food look nice and bright. Plus, music is usually fast and loud. It's done to prevent you from spending hours there. Yet, they want you to take advantage of the first 20 minutes after your purchase. The faster you eat, the longer it will take you to feel full. Scientists say it takes about 20 minutes for our stomachs to inform our brain, "Okay, now I'm full." It's a good idea to eat in a clean area, but most of these companies are using cleaning products that have super strong chemicals. Assume that the staff cleaned the place at the end of their shift. They wiped down the soda machine and grill surface, and then you showed up early the next day. You may get some of that chemical residue on your food compared to other customers visiting the place later in the day. The vegan patty may not be 100% vegan. I'm talking about the grill, not the meat itself. In most of the chains, vegan burgers are cooked on the same grill as meat burgers. Do you have fast food chain secrets you want to share? Tell them to fellow Brightsiders in the comments.
Some of those potatoes you left in your pantry have turned green. Are they still safe to eat? When these vegetables come in contact with direct sunlight, they turn green because of a little thing called chlorophyll. It's a green pigment plants need to produce food during a process called photosynthesis. To prevent potatoes from turning green, you'll need to store them in a dark and well-ventilated area. While chlorophyll itself is harmless, once the amount of this substance increases in a potato, it triggers the appearance of another element called solanine. This is a substance found in tomatoes, eggplants, and most importantly, potatoes. Not only does it make these vegetables taste bitter, but it can also cause serious health problems, for example, related to digestion. While it's best to refrain from eating green potatoes, you can always double-check if they are good to eat by tasting them. If you sense a taste of bitterness, it's best to throw them away. What about sprouted potatoes? Are they good to eat? Well, it depends. That substance solanine has a lot to do with it again. If a potato otherwise looks good and only has a couple of small sprouts, you can remove those and safely eat the vegetable. They won't be the best looking potatoes though. So if you want to cook a dish where you need neat vegetables, you might want to skip the slightly sprouted potatoes and use them for something else, like soups or mashed potatoes. But if your potato looks like it's grown arms and legs, you'll be on the safe side if you throw it away. Solanine aside, it will also taste bitter, so you might end up cooking it for no good reason at all. Let's look at some other tips to help you improve your kitchen safety skills, like how you should wash fruits and vegetables with hard rinds, say melons or cucumbers. Simply running water over them may not be enough to get rid of all the nasty stuff on their surface. Best to use a sterilized scrub brush and some elbow grease to really get into those ridges and clean the vegetables properly. That way, the dirt and bacteria won't transfer from your veggies to your cutting knife or board. A fan of grilled meat? Might want to get a food thermometer to make sure you're always on the safe side. If you're an experienced cook, you might be able to visibly judge if the meat is ready. But if you're really not sure if the product is done, a thermometer will be your best friend. Specialists claim that whole cuts of meat need to reach a minimum internal temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit before you can serve them. Fish needs to reach 145 degrees, while ground meats need a minimum of 160. Poultry or pre-cooked meat, like hot dogs, need to be heated to at least 165 degrees. To safely store all the food you've bought for the rest of the week, you also need to make sure that your household devices are working properly and are set at the right temperatures, like your refrigerator temperature, for example, which should be at 40 degrees or lower. As for the temperature in the freezer, it should be 0 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Now, that thermometer I mentioned earlier can be of use here too if you need to check whether your appliances are working properly. Luckily, most of these devices come equipped with their own thermometers these days. Do you need to bring your own food to your neighbor's barbecue party? Make sure to keep it cool on the way. Meat, poultry, and seafood need to be transported at 40 degrees Fahrenheit at most. You can always use an icebox. Just make sure to place its cooling parts in the freezer the night before. The way you organize food in your fridge can affect its quality too. Raw meat, for example, needs to be stored on the bottom shelf of your fridge. It's also best to keep it away from fresh produce and ready-to-eat dishes. Now, have you experienced a long power outage recently? Sorry, but all the food in your fridge needs to go. If your fridge was offline for only a couple of minutes, you're most likely safe. Otherwise, you'll need to get rid of all the perishable foods. When it comes to canned food, you also need to take into consideration its acidity levels. Products that are high in acidity, like tomatoes, grapefruit, and pineapple, can be stored for 12 to 18 months if unopened. Canned vegetables, meat, poultry, and fish can be stored for longer, anywhere between 2 to 5 years, if the storing conditions are right and if the can itself remains undamaged. If anything looks rusty or has bumps on it, remove it from your pantry. You also need to be careful with storing your acidic food, as you should never use reactive pans. You might know that aluminum is used a lot in cookware because it's good at conducting heat. but cooking or storing something in an aluminum pan might not be so good for your food. Tomato sauce, for example, can damage aluminum or cast iron plates, and that will show in both the taste and the color of your food. Non-reactive pans are your safe bet, so make sure you invest in a good quality stainless steel, enamel-coated, or glass set of pans. A lot of dishes taste better if you pre-marinate the ingredients. Just make sure to always marinate food in the refrigerator. If you leave it outside on your counter, it'll soon reach room temperature, and then bacteria will start to multiply. And it may be dangerous if you don't cook that product at a high enough temperature afterward. Also, never reuse the marinating liquid. Now, the first rule, whenever you're gathering tools to prep for dinner, multiple cutting boards for each type of food. One should be reserved for meat and seafood, while others should be divided between vegetables, fruit, and baked goods. It's the best way to avoid cross-contamination in the kitchen. And speaking of cutting boards, your best bet would be to invest in a good bamboo one. This material absorbs little to no moisture and isn't easily damaged by knives. It's way more resistant to bacteria than any other type of wood, and it also lasts longer, not to mention the fact that it also looks really cool. Eggs can cause a lot of trouble if not stored correctly, but here are a couple of tips you can use. Fresh eggs are safe to eat for up to 3 weeks after purchase. Keep them in their original carton. Hard-boiled eggs need to be consumed within the week, no matter if they still have their shells on or not. Lastly, if you keep leftover egg dishes in your fridge, make sure you eat them within 3 to 4 days. Now, we all want our batter to be smooth and free of lumps, don't you? But over-mixing can be bad for your dish too. Way too much elbow grease can cause gluten to form in the flour, which will give you a really tough batter. The trick is to mix lightly just until the batter is homogeneous. Dried pasta comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes for a reason, you know? That's because you should be pairing a specific type of pasta with the texture of the sauce. Like pasta shells, for example, go better with denser and chunkier sauces. Why? Because the sauce is gathered inside the shell, making it easier to serve and eat. The ribbed outside surface also helps with covering the shells in the sauce. Next time you mess up a tray of cookies and end up burning them, you can save them with your trusty grater. Just grate off the blackened parts from the bottom after carefully removing the cookies from the tray. Also, if you ruin their shape a bit, you can always dip them in melted chocolate. After the chocolate gets a chance to cool down, you'll be left with perfectly shaped pastries.
There's a dangerous dish that can poison you when prepared incorrectly. Everyday food like honey and cashew can be harmful too, in certain conditions. You should know these facts before you eat some products. Have you ever chewed the seeds when eating an apple? Then you know that unpleasant taste the seeds have. That's because of cyanide. Don't be alarmed yet. The seeds have a protective cloak covering them. That's why cyanide doesn't enter your system if you accidentally swallow the seeds. Better be cautious though. Even small doses of cyanide can result in rapid breathing and more extreme and unpleasant results. Another danger lurking in your kitchen is potatoes, the ones with sprouts and green spots. Cutting off the green parts or sprouts solves the problem only visibly. The toxic substance called glycoalkaloid may have already spread through the whole potato. This substance turns some parts of a potato green for some reason. It's a sign for you. Eating this kind of potato can cause nausea, headaches, and other consequences. Are you a bubble tea fan? Then maybe you're familiar with cassava, aka tapioca. This is a root veggie, and it's cultivated in South America. It's also often used to make cakes and chips. It can be either sweet or bitter. It's common for root and tuber varieties of cassava to contain toxins. Tapioca must be prepared properly before you consume it. If it's served incorrectly or eaten raw, the consequences are pretty serious. But when it's processed correctly, it's delicious and safe to eat. Elderberries are known as a supplement to boost your immune system and help your body fight a cold or the flu. This medicinal plant needs to be handled and prepared with care too. If you eat unripe berries, they can do more harm than good. Here comes lectin and cyanide. These chemicals can cause stomach problems, for instance. This one makes me sad more than any other thing on the list, and this list includes a lot of healthy products. Anyway, here I spell it out. Popcorn. There are many studies saying that microwave popcorn is harmful for you. First, you consume the chemicals used in packaging. There are also flavoring additives that aren't healthy. Now remember that moment when you open the bag and hot popcorn smelling air goes up into your nose? It can lead to irreversible lung damage. For instance, there's a diagnosis named popcorn lung. A chemical used to provide microwave popcorn with its buttery flavor is related to that diagnosis. What can you do? Choose other packaging options or invest in an air popper. Air-popped popcorn has only 90 calories and less than 1 gram of fat. Yay! Number 6 is honey. Honey is a sweet liquid made by... I'm joking. But do you know that natural honey is dangerous to eat if the amount is more than a teaspoon? It has a toxin with a hard-to-pronounce name. To get rid of this toxin, honey has to go through a pasteurization process. Let's move on to cherry pits. If you don't chew or crunch them, you'll probably be fine. Yet, keep in mind that these pits contain prussic acid, and this stuff is poisonous. What about Ackee fruit? It's the national fruit of Jamaica, and it turns out unripe Ackee contains a poison called hypoglycin. Ackee fruit must be fully ripe if you want to eat it. In other words, this fruit should open up by itself. Once it's ready to be picked up, it'll split wide open. No to the highly toxic pink flesh or black seeds, and yes to the delicious creamy pulp near the seeds. Eating this fruit incorrectly can cause Jamaican stomach sickness. Fugu is the Japanese word for pufferfish and the dish prepared from it. What's interesting about this dish is that it can be the last dish in your life if you don't prepare it properly. This fish contains a very powerful toxin that's very dangerous to humans. A single fish has enough poison to harm 30 people. Because of this, Japanese chefs undergo years of training to get a special license. Despite all precautions and preparations, fugu still sometimes becomes the last meal for some people. Would you take that risk? Perfect ciders, cashews. They can also be very risky to eat when they're raw. You probably get cashews from stores with raw cashew labels, but they aren't 100% raw. Before they find their spots on the shelves, they're processed with steam to remove a toxin called urushiol. Cashew shells contain this toxin. What would happen to you if you ate these nuts raw? A dangerous allergic reaction if you have a tendency to allergies. This depends on your sensitivity to poison ivy. Speaking of raw food, raw kidney beans are risky too. They contain a toxin called lectin. This one can give you stomach aches and other digestion-related issues as a bonus. All you need is to swallow 4 to 5 raw beans to experience these side effects. Red beans are rich in plant-based protein, essential vitamins, and minerals. Cook them correctly to enjoy these goodies. For this, keep dried red beans on the stove for at least 10 minutes. Boiling them for a shorter time and at a lower temperature can actually increase their toxicity. Beans can become even more toxic than if they are consumed raw, so yeah, a minimum of 10 minutes at high temperatures. Eating too many untreated bitter almonds can cause many unpleasant symptoms and health issues. Rhubarb leaves are a bit tricky too. You can eat the stalk, but don't munch on the leaves. The leaves contain oxalic acid, which ties to calcium. This makes it harder for the body to absorb the needed amounts of calcium. Mushrooms. For plenty of people, pizza and pasta wouldn't be so great without mushrooms. We all know that mushrooms are kinda unpredictable, especially if they grow in the wild. Here are 2 of the most dangerous ones, the death cap and the destroying angel. Starfruit is a risky choice for people with sensitive kidneys. If you're one of them, you might want to keep this fruit out of your meals. Regularly functioning kidneys can filter out the toxins starfruit contains. Otherwise, the toxin will hang around and cause some problems there. The next product on the list is nutmeg. If you find that nutty flavor super nice like me, hear me out before adding it everywhere. Small amounts of nutmeg are fine and healthy. But if you, let's say, eat spoonfuls of nutmeg, it can cause problems. Even with 2 teaspoons. Knock knock, you get poisoned. Canned tuna can be a lifesaver. It's not pricey, it's a good source of protein, and with its help, you can prepare a delicious meal quickly. No cooking, just lettuce, bread, and a few more ingredients. There you go. How about 3 to 5 times a week? And you might experience a side effect called mercury poisoning. Now, this is related to how much and what type of food you consume. Canned tuna contains mercury, and that's why eating too much of it can lead to mercury poisoning. Medical advisors say that every kind of fish has some level of mercury. But that level differs from one species to another. For example, canned tuna has relatively high levels of mercury. Obviously, seafood is a great source of omega-3 and other things that are essential to our brain and good health. To stay safe, experts advise people to choose low-mercury seafood. Here's an interesting fact related to this. To get the most omega-3 fats from your canned tuna, choose water-packed fish instead of oil-packed. In oil-packed cans, the oil mixes with some of the tuna's natural fat. You open the can and drain the oil, and some of the fish's omega-3 fatty acids also get drained. But water and oil don't mix. Water-packed tuna won't lose its omega-3 fats. You can add some oil and dressing after you open the can.
Picture this. It's a cloudy, misty morning in the middle of winter. Tom wakes up, a bit nervous for the day ahead. He's leaving on a long journey through uncharted waters. His captain says they will try to leave England and make it all the way to the Americas. He's ready and packed to leave his house when his wife reminds him to take the biscuits he had spent the night preparing. Let's zoom in on these biscuits right here. They look a bit strange, don't they? These are called ship's biscuits, and they were literally the biscuits that sailors ate during long voyages at sea. A ship's biscuit could go years without going bad. I know that sounds impossible, but the secret is in the ingredients and baking methods. When sailors departed, they didn't know how long they would go without setting foot on land again, so they needed to be ready, food-wise. Otherwise, they could perish from extreme hunger. So bakers came up with this simple biscuit. It's mostly made out of 3 ingredients: salt, flour, and a bit of water. The idea is that the dough stayed as stiff as it could. Then, bakers would put them in the oven for hours, at very low temperatures. The purpose of this slow baking was to take off all the moisture in the biscuits. Even if you're not an experienced sailor, you might suspect that moisture is the enemy of food preservation. It makes stuff get moldy and attracts insects and other animals. Plus, a ship is already an extremely moist environment. So the biscuits had to go on the countercurrent of all of that. A ship's biscuit can go 6, 7, 8 years without going bad. The little holes you see on them help to get the moisture out during the cooking process. A sailor like Tom, medium-sized, would get a portion of 6 to 8 ship's biscuits per day. They were extremely nutritious and satiated a person's hunger. Now, this was a type of survival food. It wasn't meant to be super pleasurable, yummy, or even give you all the nutrients you needed. Just the basics. Now, do you have any idea what life was like in the 18th century? If you think about a city like New York, there were only about 18,000 people living there. For comparison, today the city hosts more than 8 million people. Back then, if someone had to travel from New York to Boston, there wouldn't be any of the convenience stores there were along the way. I mean, there weren't even roads as we know them now. So, people needed to make food provisions. And this is where portable soup came in handy. If you imagined a boiling pot of meat and veggies, I'm sorry to inform you, you are wrong. Portable soup is hard and condensed. It looks like this. Portable soup is a type of solidified broth, a very, very condensed substance made essentially of meat. Think about it. It's convenient, it's light, it doesn't take up much space, but it's extremely hard to make. The best meat to make portable soup is one with a lot of collagen, like beef shank, and the secret is slow cooking. You can't lose sight of it though, because if it boils up, you ruin the whole thing. While cooking the meat, it will release its taste in the water in the pot, and after a few hours, it's safe to take the beef out. The remaining water will be rich in nutrients and fats, and once you reduce that down for about 18 to 24 hours, you'll get a gelatine-like nutritional substance. Once this cools down, it turns into a tablet of sorts. It's pretty amazing to witness the entire transformation process. But hey, this dark tablet is really satiable. And to eat it, you just needed to find some hot water and put the meat tablet inside of it. It would release all the condensed nutrients in it, giving you a warm, hearty meal. Here's a trick question for you. Do you know why hamburgers are called hamburgers if they are not made out of ham? Apparently, it has to do with the city they were first invented in, the city of Hamburg in Germany. But it wasn't what we are used to today. I mean, they didn't even use ketchup. Well, at least not the tomato ketchup we use now. But did you know that other types of ketchup have existed throughout history? As weird as it may sound, back in the 18th century, people ate mushroom ketchup. For your information, if you look up ketchup in some dictionaries, it is by definition a sauce made out of mushrooms. It has nothing to do with tomatoes. I wonder where people got that idea from. Anyways, to make it you can use any type of mushrooms. Even shiitake if you're feeling fancy. The idea is to smash them, cook them, and add a bunch of spices to the mix. I'm talking clove, nutmeg, ginger, pepper, and whatever else your palate wishes for. And in case you're wondering what our ancestors ate it with, I have one word for you: meat. They would pour mushroom ketchup over a nice piece of steak, for example, like a gravy sauce or something like it. Now, if this just left your mouth full of water, I have good news. You can still find mushroom ketchup in Great Britain. It's just North America that kind of forgot it. Neat, huh? And what did people eat back in the day when they were feeling unwell? Today, we have a concept of food I particularly love: comfort food, which is something to eat when you are feeling down and sad. But then, on the days you're feeling sick, what do you eat? I immediately think of a warm soup or something nutritious and light. Our forefathers drank something called posset. Now, posset could be described as an eggnog with some sweets added into it. Its recipe can be traced down to as early as the 15th century. The drink was considered such a reliable remedy that Shakespeare even used it as a poison in Macbeth. Here's another quick pop quiz for you. Why do we say the proof is in the pudding? This famous expression simply means that you'll only know the true value of something once you experience it for yourself. The expression started to be used back in the 1600s, but there's an important thing to note here. In Britain, pudding is not the sweet dessert known by many in America. Rather, it's a savory dish, much like a pie. I guess it's safe to say that the British are good at turning almost anything into pie. From apple pie to pumpkin pie, chicken pot pie, and so on. Now, in the 18th century, they had something called beefsteak pie. This was an incredibly popular dish back then, but somewhere along the way we lost the habit of making it. Sure, you can find steak and kidney pudding today, but it's got all sorts of stuff in it, such as potatoes, carrots, and thick gravy. Up until the 19th century, people ate the stripped-down version of this dish, which was basically made out of richly flavored meat. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you're in the US, you might eat some avocado on toast or a rich bowl of cereal. If you're in Vietnam, you might enjoy a warm bowl of broth soup or rice. But if you were eating breakfast in 18th century England, or even the United States, you would get something like this. This is the old school version of what we know as bacon and eggs. Except that back then, it was called collops and eggs. According to the traditional Hannah Glass recipe, straight from the most famous cookbooks of back then, the egg wasn't fried or boiled. It was poached, and the bacon was probably not as processed as we eat them today. A little toast was added on the side, and there you had it. The perfect start for a long day.
This creature first appeared on our planet around 1 billion years ago. It thrives in damp environments and can survive pretty much anywhere. It might be in your basement as we speak. I think you've already guessed, I'm talking about mold here. It's a type of fungus that spreads through tiny particles moving through the air. These spores are like the seeds of a plant, although they're much smaller. Sometimes they cling onto clothes or animal fur and travel long distances unnoticed. They can survive even in some unfriendly environments and start growing when they land somewhere with enough water, food, and oxygen. Mold comes in all colors of the rainbow, and each color stands for a certain type of mold. You can usually find red or orange mold outdoors. The pink variety likes to reside in bathrooms on shampoo and soap residues. Black and green mold are the types you're most likely to meet in your house. Unlike plants that use photosynthesis, mold grows on materials it can digest. Even one tiny mold spore is powerful enough to harm several people. But there are over 100,000 different types of mold in the world, and not all of them are dangerous to you. Ugh, you just noticed something green on your sandwich, but only a small part of it is infected, so maybe you can just cut it off. Nope, it won't work out. The tiny greenish spots you see are on the surface, and you can spot them with the naked eye, but there's more hiding inside the bread. But if it was 1 second too late and you've bitten into the bright green patch of mold, don't rush to the bathroom to scrub your tongue with antibacterial soap. You've probably eaten mold before without even knowing about it. It easily grows on soft porous foods like bread, fruit, and vegetables. So, consuming just a bit of it is okay, as long as you have a strong immune system. You'll digest it like any normal food. If you feel sick after consuming it, that's most likely because mold tastes weird, and not because there's some vicious substance spreading through your body. So, the best you can do if you spot mold on your bread is not to risk your health and throw away the entire loaf. Mold likes to settle in cooked leftovers like meat, poultry, casseroles, grain, pasta, cottage and cream cheese, yogurt, and sour cream. It's easier for mold to penetrate softer food, so it also loves fruits and vegetables like strawberries, cucumbers, peaches, and tomatoes. Jams and jellies are another easy target for mold, as it thrives in sweet and sugary foods. Yikes! Mold isn't always the bad guy ruining your lunch. You've got to thank it for that exquisite taste of blue cheeses, like Gorgonzola, Roquefort, and Blue. Camembert and Brie wouldn't be so delicious without the white mold on their surface. Cheese is 99.99% milk, and its makers grow mold either inside or outside the cheese, depending on its sort. But if you find mold on a cheese that shouldn't have it, like cheddar, Parmesan, or Swiss, it means the molds added to any cheese to give it taste have come into contact with oxygen and started reproducing and breaking down fats and proteins uncontrollably. You should cut off the affected part carefully with a knife without touching the mold. The rest of the cheese is still good to eat. It would be impossible to produce soy sauce without fermenting soybeans, and it happens thanks to a certain type of fungi. Salami fans should appreciate mold for the unique flavor it gives to the meat, and for preventing it from drying out too quickly. Mold has also saved millions of lives. Penicillium mold helped achieve a real breakthrough in medical science, as it naturally produces the well-known penicillin, accidentally discovered by Scottish researcher Alexander Fleming in 1928. Some types of mold can also help you in the garden as a great mulch. Some gardening fans spend years trying to grow leaf mold to use for compost. They believe it improves soil quality. To prevent mold from overtaking your lunch, keep the food covered with plastic wrap in the fridge. Don't keep leftovers of perishable foods in their cans. Put them in airtight containers instead. Keep track of what you store in the fridge. Leftovers shouldn't be there for longer than 3 to 4 days. Keep your fridge clean. Only use fresh and clean dishcloths, towels, sponges, and mops. Once you notice a musty smell, it means mold is about to settle in your kitchen, and its plan is to contaminate your food. But what if mold spreads in the damp areas of your house? You might not notice any consequences for your health immediately, but they might resurface in the long term. As mold grows, its spores and fragments can produce irritants in the air inside your house. Depending on how sensitive you are, you might notice it's becoming hard to breathe. And since mold slowly but surely breaks materials in your house, there will be more dust and other particles in the air. When you try to get rid of the bad mold in your house, you might accidentally touch it without any protection. It won't take your life, but don't let it sit on your hands. First off, clean your hands well with antibacterial soap. Clean between your fingers and the back of each hand thoroughly, and also scrub underneath the nails. If you can't reach some spores, use a toothpick. Then, clean your hands with a strong sanitizer. The final step will be to wash your hands with liquid soap under running water. Again, don't miss the areas between your fingers and under your nails. Don't touch your face until your hands are perfectly clean. You don't want to accidentally inhale those spores. You should also take off the clothes you were wearing when you came into contact with mold and wash it immediately. It's impossible to mold-proof your home, but you can make it resistant to that mean intruder. Inspect your house and find the problem areas. It could be a flood in your basement, a water stain on the ceiling, or a window that's always covered with condensation. Fix those problems and install proper ventilation in the house. AC units and dehumidifiers will help. Open a window while cooking or showering to keep the moisture outside. Make sure your roof gutters are regularly cleaned and fixed. Invest in a moisture meter and monitor the humidity inside. Ideally, it should be between 30 and 60%. Always remove wet clothes from the washing machine unless you want to share your garments with mold. The best you can do is hang them to dry outside in fresh air and wait while they get completely dry before putting them in your wardrobe. Empty and air out drawers and closets you rarely open every now and then. Never leave the bathroom floor and walls wet after you take a shower. And clean your house regularly. Then nasty mold won't have a chance. The moist soil in your houseplants is every mold's dream. To save them, don't overwater them and let fresh air circulate in the room where your plants live. If you see mold is starting to grow on your plants, mix 2 tablespoons of white vinegar and some water in a spray bottle and apply the mix to your plants. You can also do the same thing using a tablespoon of baking soda. There's a common myth that bleach can help you get rid of mold. In reality, it will only help you remove the visible part, but the spores will survive and keep spreading. Depending on what you do for a living, you may also meet mold in your workplace. Poorly ventilated spaces, greenhouses, farms, and even bookstores and libraries are in the risk zone here. Paper contains cellulose, and it's a perfect food source for some types of mold. Old books that have been stored in a humid room for many years could be hiding millions of mold spores. The rules to protect yourself in a workspace are pretty much the same as for your house. Clean it regularly, dry damp surfaces, and if it's impossible, wear protective gloves when you have to come into contact with mold.
Everyone has their own morning rituals to cheer the body up after sleep. Apart from exercising and hot showers, the first food that you put into your hungry tummy can define the rest of the day. That's why it's good to know which foods are just not meant to be eaten on an empty stomach. Well, at least we have bananas. This fruit is a great choice for a lazy breakfast, right? Wrong! No matter how fresh and healthy it is, raw bananas can bring chaos to your stomach if you eat them at the wrong time. This fruit is rich in magnesium, which may lead to digestive issues. Also, in some cases, it can cause blood pressure fluctuations. But if you're still a dedicated banana eater, try mixing it with oatmeal. It creates a lining in the stomach that prevents irritation caused by the naturally produced hydrochloric acid. Bananas go well with other healthy foods like porridge, peanut butter, dried fruits, or nuts for eating early in the morning. What could be better than a fresh, crispy croissant for breakfast? Many things, actually. Cakes, pastries, pizza, and other bakeries usually contain yeast, which can harm the stomach lining if eaten on an empty stomach. Also, bakery products may cause flatulence, so it's not the best food you want to eat first thing in the morning. But you can replace the regular white yeast bakery with sourdough whole grain bread. In fact, it's one of the best food choices right after waking up. This bread is rich in carbohydrates that are very important for a balanced diet and keeping your gut bacteria happy. A glass of fresh citrus juice looks very Instagram-friendly when standing on a fancy breakfast tray. But unfortunately, things don't look so glamorous inside your stomach. Fruit smoothies and juices are too rich in fructose, which may shock and overburden your sleepy pancreas and liver. Although they are great any time of the day, in the morning, citrus fruits should be consumed after eating something else. Otherwise, they may cause great harm to the body. The high content of fructose and fiber can make your metabolism work lazier during the day. And also, experts don't recommend eating more than 2 oranges per day to avoid hurricanes in your tummy. If you can't imagine your morning without fruits, go for papaya or watermelon. They can help flush toxins out of your body and make you feel lighter during the day. Fresh salads are very good in most cases, but still, experts advised against eating raw vegetables on an empty stomach. After a long hour fasting, your tummy may find it too hard to digest the coarse fibers. So, if you don't want to experience pain and discomfort, keep your salad for later hours. Let's talk about the hot water in the morning trend. You've probably seen a bulk of its variations. Bloggers suggest mixing the water with all sorts of things, from lemon juice and chia seeds to baking soda. Of course, each of these magic potions requires separate research and scientific approval. But most experts agree that 1 glass of pure lukewarm water in the morning is a great tool to inspire your bowel movement and prepare it for the day. On the other hand, it's not advised to drink cold beverages if your stomach is empty because they can damage the mucous membrane. This can make your digestive system work lazier, or in some cases, cause discomfort and an upset stomach. When it comes to your morning coffee, the rule is simple. If you want to stay healthy, never drink coffee on an empty stomach. When you do so, it stimulates the secretion of hydrochloric acid, which is harmful to your digestive system. Not only can it provoke gastritis from time to time, but also develop many health issues in the long term. Also, coffee boosts the level of cortisol, the hormone which controls our biological clock. It happens very quickly, and the body needs to make an extra effort to balance the things back to a normal state. That's why experts recommend drinking coffee an hour after waking up, but you should eat something beforehand. Even a tiny slice of bread will be fine. If you like eating yogurt with granola or any other fermented milk products for breakfast, make sure to eat something safe before them. Ideally, you have to wait about an hour. Otherwise, dairy products can damage the good bacteria in your stomach and cause the effect opposite to what they're actually made for. But this recommendation doesn't apply to cheeses. If you want your digestive system to thank you, go for feta or cottage cheese. These good fats are just perfect for the morning. Goat cheese is also a nice idea. It's softer and tangier than most cow cheeses. And it also tends to be slightly higher in fat and minerals and lower in lactose. Many people eat chocolate or protein bars for breakfast, but in fact, processed sugar is the champion among the worst breakfast choices. Any high sugar food and drink should be avoided just after waking up in the morning. But don't rush off to cut off the chocolate completely. It can help chase away the morning gloom and improve your mood during the day. Chocolate can promote positive feelings because it stimulates the production of hormones responsible for our good mood. That's why a reasonable amount of high-quality chocolate after breakfast can be beneficial for your well-being and help you switch to work mode. Keep in mind that darker chocolate contains more caffeine, while white chocolate has none. So, if you want to stay alert, go for 70% dark chocolate. Not only does it help you stay wakeful, but it's also a treasury of useful components like calcium, copper, potassium, antioxidants, and magnesium. Chili with jalapenos might taste delicious, but it's not the best choice for breakfast. Here's why. When you eat spicy food on an empty stomach, it irritates your vulnerable lining and makes your belly very unhappy. So, if you don't want to risk suffering from an irritated stomach throughout the day, it makes sense to keep the chili for dinner. It may seem like all foods are bad on an empty stomach, but that's not the case. In fact, we have plenty of safe and healthy breakfast options that will help improve the functioning of your body. Take nuts, for example. These tiny power banks are rich in vitamins, minerals, proteins, and good omega-3 fatty acids. So eating them first in the morning can be very nutritious. They'll keep you feeling energized during the day and help fight overeating habits. Also, nut consumption can help maintain the pH balance in the stomach. But, of course, moderation is crucial because nuts are very fatty. Experts advise eating just 1 handful per day, which is approximately 2 tablespoons. Some recommend soaking nuts in water overnight to make them even more beneficial and easier to digest. The same technique works for dates, raisins, and other dried fruits and berries. If you're both worried about your weight and health, the perfect choice for breakfast is eggs. They can give a feeling of fullness without heaviness, which helps to control appetite during the day. They're also rich in proteins and low in calories. Just a couple of tablespoons of wheat germs before breakfast will provide you with a bunch of vitamins and folic acid. This superfood contains dietary fiber that helps your digestive system work smoothly. It's also reported to have some anti-aging properties. Here's another well-known superfood that can give you both a good mood and better digestion: chia seeds. They're even more beneficial when consumed on an empty stomach. It's up to you whether to take them directly or along with water. When you consume honey after waking up, it can gently add some inspiration to a lazy bowel. Also, honey can boost the production of serotonin to help you feel good during the day. But first, make sure you're not allergic to honey.
Today, we're going to reveal some fast food secrets. By now, we've all learned that we never get the exact same food that we see in ads. But there is way more stuff to know about how fast food companies make us buy stuff. It's like they make your brain order, "Ooh, I've seen something delicious. Get that for me ASAP. Ooh." Well, imagine entering a food court and smelling all that beautiful food. As you walk by, one smell stands out from the others: fresh baked Cinnabon. Yeah, they do bake them, but the smell that reaches your nose doesn't come straight from the oven. Cinnabon bakery chains place their ovens near their front door to attract customers. That smell isn't just coming from the oven, though. The staff heats baking sheets with sprinkled cinnamon and brown sugar to keep the sweet aroma in the air all day long. These smells make you feel hungry, even though your stomach isn't empty. Let me introduce you to aroma marketing. The aim here is to make products irresistible. Did you notice the unique scent of crispy fries from McDonald's? It's the same smell in all stores worldwide. This is a pre-planned strategy. You smell these aromas and your body increases ghrelin production. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone, by the way. Your stomach produces it. So yeah, these smells can stimulate your appetite. Another strategy to lure customers is to use the power of colors. They also trigger your appetite. Think about the most famous fast food restaurant logos and the colors used inside and in their branding. Slogans, mascots, or meals can change, but nearly all well-known fast food chains go with a similar color palette. There's no coincidence. Research proves that these warm colors activate your hunger. Also, they grab your attention. Think about it as a traffic light or a stop sign. You kind of want to stop. Now, in the past, people burned many calories to find food. Are you going to hunt some animals and gather some herbs? No. You just need to walk into a cafe around the corner to get your food in 5 minutes. Since this food is not expensive and is served fast, your brain's reward system favors it. Convenience is also addictive, like sugar. Brands are aware of this, and this leads us to the next fact. Businesses know how our brains work and manipulate them. If you're asked if you want to have a larger size of fries or drink, it's likely you'll say yes. Every brand earns millions of dollars just by upsizing the menus, for instance. Upsizing costs less, but oops, you've actually just spent more than you intended. The pricing format and dollar menu are also a part of this trick. You see numbers advertised as only $5.89. It's almost $6, but your brain associates it with the number 5 because you see 5 written there, not 6. Plus, the currency signs are sometimes small and hard to read. You go for a la carte option, but they're placed on the sides and extra value meals flash out. When you look at the prices, a place in your brain called the orbitofrontal cortex takes control. Research shows that when a person buys something, knowing there's a better deal among the options, The brain activity shows signs of pain. There's a good offer, but if you take it, you end up eating more. Maybe you only want to buy a burger and you end up with fries and a drink. On the other hand, it's good if that was your intention all along. I can't argue with that. Do you know that your burgers are wrapped in grease-repelling paper? This means that this paper might contain harmful chemicals. Researchers tested samples taken from 400 containers and wrappers from fast food chains. They discovered that 38% of sandwich and burger wrappers contain fluorine, a rather toxic substance. And it's not just sandwich and burger wrappers. They found that 56% of dessert and bread wrappers and 20% of French fry sleeves contain fluorine. So, sadly, not just fast food, but also its packaging can be harmful. Now here's another trick. When you're on your way to get a snack from the drive-thru, the machines will recognize your license plate, and based on your previous purchases, they will flash similar options in front of you. Another thing about drive-thrus is that they place cameras there. Sometimes you just talk through the buzzer. You can't see the staff, but beware, they can see you in some chains. Those use devices like magnetic sensors to notice vehicles. Then employees get notified via their headsets. They press a special button to activate their mics. Without sensors, cameras, and windows, how could they see you coming? They aren't psychic. Don't worry much though. Employees probably don't care what you do. I mean, they have a million other things to do instead. Now, let's assume you get a burger from the drive-thru. You have grilled meat in it. Wait a minute, is it really grilled? Shocking news, they add a solution, sort of a sauce with a grilled flavor to the meat, and make those fake grill lines on it. They can't grill meat at such short notice, but people like this look, so they go with this option. Speaking of faking it, fast food is very processed. I mean, the flavor in the burgers and nuggets is often gone in the process level of processed. To compensate for this, companies add special chemicals to give the food taste and aroma. Now earlier, we talked about the tricks companies use in drive-thrus. It's time to reveal the secrets of self-serve kiosks. You tend to spend more when you order your food via these kiosks. Restaurants expect that you'll spend about 20% more. The system in these kiosks is designed to upsell. Cashiers ask you questions, but while using a self-service kiosk, you don't feel rushed or maybe judged for your orders and choices. A lawsuit was filed in the U.S. about one fast food chain's tuna sandwich. It turns out that the ingredient advertised as tuna had no tuna in it. This was concluded by tests run in independent labs with multiple samples taken from this chain in California. The fast food chain said the claims didn't reflect the truth. So, we'll just wait and see. A fact about nuggets is here, and it's proven. This one might be hard to digest, but they often don't contain chicken. Scientists have tested them, and what they found is often only 50% meat. Apparently, there's a thing, sort of a process, called mechanically separated meat, and the remaining product comes from there. Fancy eating a Blizzard cone or parfait from DQ? No one could stop you, but you should know that technically, what you're eating isn't ice cream. Dairy Queen Soft Serve has 5% milk fat. The FDA says that a product has to have at least 10% of milk fat to be considered ice cream. But the company isn't keeping this fact to itself. It's written on its website. Now, what about discount coupons or free products? It's all part of the plan. Some people go to restaurants with coupons. They think, I might also get this or that since I'm already here. Most of them buy something else, and the item they buy is often more expensive than the free item on their coupon. Now, sometimes people want to go with healthier options in fast food chains. They might miss the point that healthy might not be healthy at the end of the day if the person orders a sauced chicken salad. They might end up having more calories than they would get from a burger. On top of this, healthier options often cost more in comparison to regular items. Anyway, this is an ever-lengthening list. After all, the fast food industry is huge. We're talking billions of dollars. Maybe that's why it comes with a lot of secrets behind the scenes. We've been talking about all this, and now I want to order a burger.
Is this safe to eat? We sometimes see strange dots on our potatoes and wonder if we should just throw them away. Here are 10 eat or toss facts. Did you know that every year 119 billion pounds of food is wasted only in the United States? To put it in perspective, this number means nearly 40% of all food in America is wasted. People throw away food if they don't have confidence in the ingredients. They're being cautious, and it makes sense. But what if the food is safe to eat and only looks weird? The first item on the list is beef. When it comes to meat, people naturally get extra cautious. Imagine you buy some raw beef in the store. Later on, you realize it's got some brown spots. If you toss it immediately, hear me out. This is normal. In fact, you can see brown layers also inside the beef. Bright red color equals fresh meat, huh? Not necessarily. When the meat is first cut, it's maroon. If the meat is quickly vacuum packaged, it will keep that shade. But if the meat is exposed to air for like 15 minutes, then oxygen will cause a change in the look to red. The redness can turn brown when the biochemical reaction starts. This can take a few hours. Workers at the grocery stores grind the meat several times a day to achieve that bright red color because they know consumers are cautious about maroon-looking beef. If the beef is wrapped in an oxygen-permeable plastic, it turns bright red after exposure to oxygen. As long as the meat smells and feels fresh, and if it's been stored properly, it should be safe to eat. Have you ever come across dark lines under a shrimp shell? This one has a similar story to beef. Black lines on your shrimp's flesh are related to a natural phenomenon. They gradually occur after shrimps are taken from the water. Meat is exposed to oxygen, and the blackness gets more visible over time. Here also, the pattern of the animal itself can be a factor. These black lines can be a naturally occurring discoloration on the shrimp. Think of cats. They also have different color patterns, but they're the same in terms of species. Next time, you can conduct a mini experiment in your kitchen. Put a couple of shrimp side by side and observe the mild differences in the shrimp's color patterns. Shrimp will have a distinct bad odor when it's no longer edible, so if it smells and tastes fresh, don't toss it. Should you eat moldy yogurt? That green substance on the surface doesn't look appealing at all. But if you scoop it out, you seem to have clean yogurt underneath. The short answer is toss it. The mold could be seen on the top only, but it has probably gone deep. Not to mention that it'll taste bad. Many molds are harmless, but some produce toxic substances. Green mold is a type of penicillium. Does this word sound familiar? That's the same type of mold used in the antibiotic penicillin. Don't get too excited. Eating moldy yogurt won't magically cure bacterial infections. It only spoils your dairy product. In 2013, there was an outbreak related to one line of yogurts. The company handed the products to stores as usual. After some time, they received customer complaints. They said that the yogurt looked like yogurt soup and tasted really old. Turns out that a type of fungus probably released some carbon dioxide. It made the product fizzy and bloating. Ugh. The company and another independent scientist both said that this fungus in question wasn't usually harmful to people. Yet, more than 200 people reported becoming affected by it. So, these sorts of things can still happen. You should trust your spidey sense. If you've ever been lucky enough to see some mold in a freshly opened package, reach out to the manufacturer. You'll potentially save others from facing the same scenery by notifying the company about a systemic issue and preventing potential future product waste. Plus, the company probably wants to make amends and either reimburse your sad yogurt with a happy one, or better, they'll give you coupons for free products. Why do avocados sometimes have brown dots inside? Technically, it's edible, but you might not want to eat it. Avocados are a source of many vitamins like C, E, K, and B6, as well as healthy stuff like magnesium, potassium, and more. The avocado works hard to become such a health storage. Nutrients, water, and sugars wander around this fruit. Yes, technically, avocado is classified as a fruit. Anyway, avocados have their own transport channels, like veins. These channels are normally invisible to us. Until something goes out of the ordinary, the avocado may be stored in too cold temperatures for a longer time than it should. As a result, the tissue cells might be weakened and start to deteriorate. Experts say that after the fruit is harvested, if it stays in the refrigerator for a few weeks before you buy it, vascular browning can occur. This phenomenon becomes visible after you keep the avocado at room temperature for a few days. Don't be hard on yourself, it's not because of you. So, should you eat it or toss it? You can eat the brown dotted avocados, but you may want to taste them first. They might not taste good compared to a regular one. What about the white area under the potato peel? Eat or toss? This area is also like dark bruise marks, but it's not black. If the outer layer of the potato looks normal, that odd-looking white knot is not mold. The moldy potatoes deteriorate. They'll get softer, wrinkled, or squishy. As long as the exterior of this potato appears clean and regular, there's probably no harmful microbial growth inside of it. These strikingly white areas can be shaped due to potatoes being bruised, possibly in the field during the harvesting period. To sum up, you can eat it. There's also an issue of white smears coming out when we slice potatoes. You see the marks on the cutting board? Experts say that some potatoes have a higher level of water and starch content. As a result, your cutting board gets a bit messier than usual. No need to worry about it. I'm gonna carry on with another form of potato. Not because I love every version of potato and I can eat it in all meals from breakfast to dinner, but because I want to know, what are those brown spots on potato chips? Should we eat or toss them? Consider these as minor imperfections. They don't affect the safety of the chip. They're there again because of the bruises they get or as a result of frying. Sometimes you see that your garlic is trying to make more garlic out of itself. Yep, it has sprouted. The question is it okay to eat sprouted cloves, or should you toss them? If the green sprout is in the center of the garlic clove, that's fine. Be aware that the taste of the garlic will be stronger than it usually is. It will still be perfectly okay in a cooked meal, since it'll be alongside other ingredients. The taste shouldn't be that harsh. Can we eat an apple with worms? Most people can't even stand the idea of accidentally eating an apple with a worm, but that's a cultural thing. So the answer is yes, we can eat it. After all, worms add a little protein to the fruit. These animals don't carry any harmful parasites. They make their way into the apple. The entrance point of the fruit might have an off flavor since it got sort of rotten in time. Besides the taste, the rotten part is all safe to bite. What might not be so safe is eating the fallen apples though. Those have probably been hanging out on the ground for quite some time. This period might be enough for the harmful bacteria from the soil to sneak into the apple. There were some cases where people experienced health issues by drinking unpasteurized apple juice made from dropped apples. Yeah, the ones that interact with unhealthy bacteria. See you Saturday! You hang up and realize you have 2 days before the main family get-together of the year. Your shopping list is ready, so you head to the largest supermarket in town. You follow the list to the letter, grabbing everything you need as fast as possible. The cart is full of fruit, vegetables, dairy, meat, fish, bread. Well done you! 1 hour later, you get back home and proudly hand in the shopping bags to your grandma. She takes out the items one by one and frowns more and more at each of them. Turns out the fish and meat you picked aren't fresh at all, and those bananas and greens won't make it till Saturday either. Grandma says she'll save the day. You make a good snack to not go shopping hungry. Now you won't buy the stuff you don't need. Then you get in the car together to do it all over again. Smart shopping means cruising the perimeter of the store where you can find all the fresh and healthy stuff. Fruits, vegetables, dairy, meat, and fish. They normally reserve the center aisles for junk food. So you decide to skip them altogether. Your first stop is the produce section. Grandma says you should spend the most time here. And it's a good thing you arrived before lunch. Most grocers get fresh produce when they just open, or later in the evening before they close. You reach out for packaged tomatoes, but Gran stops you. Prepackaged fruit and vegetables are usually more expensive. Plus, they don't let you check each item. A good ripe tomato can weigh double as much as an unripe one. It should have smooth and firm skin and smell like a tomato. No! Don't put that poor bruised thing into your cart. Bruises on produce are a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Try to find firm cucumbers that have no blemishes or soft spots. The best ones are dark green. If you see yellow spots, it means the thing is overly ripe and will likely taste odd. The same goes for peppers. They must be of intense color with no stains. Now turn it upside down and count the bumps. 4 bumps means fewer seeds and better taste. 2 to 3 bumps mean bitter taste. The stem of a fresh pepper is always green, firm, and crispy. Take these potatoes with sprouts out of your cart right now. Go for the firm and smooth ones, without the wrinkled skin, soft dark spots, or cuts. Pick only green lettuce with no holes or brown edges. The brighter its shade of green, the better. Moving on to fruits and berries. Gran explains that a ripe watermelon will come with a dry brown stem. This one with a dark yellow must have been resting on the ground long enough to get sweet. The same's true for melons. The ones with a yellowish bark is sweeter, as it had received enough sunlight by the time they picked it. Check out the stem of the bunch before taking those bananas home. The stem must be green to light yellow and not turning brown. Only take single bananas if you want to eat them right away. They survive longer in clusters. Never judge a mango by its color. Instead, gently squeeze it. A ripe mango will give in a bit, and it will also have a fruity aroma at the stem end. Smaller fruit is normally sweeter, but that rule doesn't work for strawberries. Different sorts come in different sizes, so bigger ones can be yummy too. Their ripening ends once they've been picked up, so go for bright red berries with fresh green leaves. Those would look dry and wilt if they had picked the berries a long time ago. That lemon won't give you much juice. It's pale, which means it's an older one. This firm, unblemished one with smooth skin will be way better. It also feels heavier, and that's a good sign as well. You're shopping for a big event, but otherwise, you'd never buy too much produce at a time. If it's fresh and organic, it won't naturally last too long, and always opt for fruits and veggies that are in season. They'll be less expensive and of better quality. Next up, honey. This one looks odd to you as it has those crystals at the bottom of the jar, but Grandma explains it's a sign of freshness. It's normal for honey to crystallize when the temperature drops. It's also a good sign it looks opaque. It means it's more natural and healthy, and not pasteurized. You check the list and realize you still need some bread. You already know the best option is the whole grain kind. You pick it up and study the label. Made with whole grains won't do. This one that says whole wheat flour is good. The fewer ingredients, the better. If you can't pronounce the name of the additive, you don't want it in your bread. It shouldn't have artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. You lightly press on the bread you just chose. Bingo! It goes back to its original shape, which means it's high quality. If you see your finger mark on it, it could have been previously frozen, or the baking process went wrong. You move towards the canned food section, and Gran jumps in your way. She's sure canned foods are bad for your health, as they contain a huge amount of sodium. You convince her to at least study the labels. You should always pick canned foods that don't have too much salt or sugar in them. The ones preserved in water or their own juice are the healthiest, as they have fewer artificial ingredients in them. You find some tuna packed in olive oil. The package is perfectly closed, so it's all good. You know you should never take a rusty can. It can be dangerous. Okay, looks like you've got everything you need, except for meat and dairy. You know you should always grab those last. They can spoil without a fridge if shopping gets too long. You make some room in your shopping cart to protect your fruit from raw meat juice, just in case. Red meat should be of dark color. Purple, red, and brown are all good. Pork should be the shade of light blushing pink. It should smell good. It can't be pungent in any way. If you see many fibers, it must be some tough meat with a strong flavor. Beef tenderloin won't have any grains because it's super tender. White flecks and streaks of fat throughout the muscle are another sign it's juicy and tender. If you aren't planning to cook meat straight away, pick the one with the latest best before date. You can still eat it safely after that date, but it tastes better before it. Dirty marks within the packaging are a red flag. Someone must have handled it with dirty hands. If the chicken you're about to buy has skin, it should be paler than the flesh, not yellow or light brown. The edges mustn't look dry. The cuts must be smooth and uniformly sized. If it's not butchered well, there might be small joints and bones in your lunch. Any chicken that has been in the container for more than 2 days should better stay on the shelf and not in your cart. Gran picks up a fish and stares it in the eye. She explains a good fish will have protruding ones with shiny black pupils. The skin of fresh fish should be silky, not sticky or dull. Squeeze the fillet. If there's a trace of your finger mark on it, it's no good. The final stop of the day, dairy products. You should reach for the back of the shelf to find the ones with the most distant expiration date. The same rule works for frozen foods, packaged foods, and eggs. Stockers locate the newer ones behind the older items. Grandma recommends choosing pasteurized milk. No raw products will land in your cart today. When milk goes through pasteurization, they heat it up to fight off disease-causing bacteria. It doesn't take away the nutritional value of the product, so no worries about that. When picking the best yogurt, pay attention to the label. The more words you see on it, the better. 3 basic ingredients are enough to make it work. The rest should be preservatives and sugar you don't need. Live and active cultures is something you want to see on the ingredients list. Don't forget to get some cheese. Not this one though. The soft kinds like ricotta, cream cheese, goat cheese, or shredded cheese shouldn't have any mold on them. It can penetrate inside easily. Some mold is fine on hard cheeses. You can carefully cut the area around it and still eat it. Yay! You're done with shopping. Time to go home and cook.
So you're watching your favorite cooking show when suddenly the star chef adds a pinch of salt to some jam that's supposed to go into a dessert. You pick up the phone to call and complain, but right then the chef explains. It turns out that adding salt to fruit is a common thing in different cuisines across the world. Like in Mexico, they like to spice up mango and citrus fruits with salt and chili powder. You can try mango with a shrimp taste in the Philippines and salted watermelon in the southern states. So, how does it work? Well, let's say you're eating a raw mango sprinkled with salt. With the first bite, you notice the salty flavor, and the sweet fruity taste is then slightly delayed. It feels as juicy and amazing as ever. It's most likely because salt affects the sweet taste receptor for sugar, and then really magic happens on a molecular level. One study even found that we have more sugar detectors in our taste cells than scientists previously thought. One of those detectors must direct sugar to a sweet taste cell when it gets in contact with salt. You can try and put salt on any fruit you like, but the effect will be different. Salt can make sweeter fruits like cherries and strawberries even sweeter and balance the flavor of grapefruit, pineapple, and watermelon. Just take a ripe fruit and slice it the regular way and sprinkle the pieces with salt. Large, flaked sea salt might taste more intense, plus it looks more beautiful. After 10 minutes, your gourmet dessert will be ready. So, you need to chop up a heap of iceberg lettuce, but that tough core in the middle doesn't want to leave. Just hold the lettuce head in both hands with the core end down and slam it against a cutting board or some other solid surface, not your brother. Now you should be able to pull the core right out of the bottom and slice the rest of the lettuce without a problem. The next time you take butter out of the fridge and struggle to spread it because, it's hard as a rock, reach for your grater. With its help, you'll easily flake off tiny pieces of butter that will melt instantly on a warm toast. You can also spread them much easier on cold bread without putting your sandwich in the microwave or waiting for a while to soften the butter. Professional bakers approve of this tip and have been using it for a long time. When you're frying something, you first heat the pan and then put the food on it, right? Well, this logic won't work if you want to make your bacon crispy. On a hot pan, the meat will cook before the fat can melt out of it. Your bacon will be too fatty and rubbery. So you gotta lay the strips on a cold pan and then turn on medium-low heat. The fat will render out of the meat, and the final result will be super yummy and crispy. Have you ever tried boiling pasta in a frying pan? I know it sounds a bit weird, but it can actually help you save a lot of time, water, and energy. Instead of filling a huge pot with water and waiting for it to boil, put your pasta in a frying pan and cover it with cold water and add some salt to it. Your pasta will be cooking while the water is getting to the boiling point, so it'll be ready much faster than normal. And the water that's left in the pan will make an excellent base for a sauce because it's filled with starch. Mix it with pesto, tomato sauce, and garlic butter. It tastes like it's straight out of a gourmet restaurant. Now, the secret to cooking the most delicious and fluffy mashed potatoes is to dry them before you mash them. After boiling, you can either put them in a pot and leave them over low heat on the stovetop, or keep them in a baking sheet in a low oven. Then add melted butter that will coat the starch in the potatoes, and only then slowly add milk. Now your mashed potatoes will have the best possible structure and flavor. If you've shed enough tears over onions when trying to slice them, this one is a must-try for you. Peel the onions, cut them in half, and leave them in the fridge in a bowl of iced water for half an hour before you start cooking. The reason behind your tears is the sulfur that onions take from the soil while growing up. When you damage its cells, the acids contact the enzymes that start a whole bunch of reactions and release a chemical that makes your eyes water. Freezing the onion can weaken that chemical. To minimize it even more, only use a sharp knife to slice onions. This way, you'll do less damage to its cells. It's much easier to peel an avocado if you freeze it first. Just put it in the fridge as it is, give it some time, and then take it out and hold it under warm running water. Now you can peel it easily after you make a couple of crisscross incisions. The best way to keep herbs fresh and juicy is to store them like flowers. If you don't have the right size vase or vase, take a mason jar or a water glass and fill it with 1 inch of water. Now put the herbs inside as you would do to your roses. For parsley and cilantro, cover the jar with a plastic bag and store the bouquet in the fridge. Basil loves sunlight, so you better leave it uncovered on the counter. If you've made too much sauce or have some leftovers in a can that doesn't seem to be enough for anything, you can save it from the trash can. Pour the sauce into an ice cube tray and keep it in the freezer. Now, if you need to spice up a meal, you can always add a couple of sauce cubes to it. Plus, as a bonus, which is redundant, the sauce will last longer this way than it would in the fridge. Do your meatballs always turn out to be perfectly the same shape and size? Then skip this one. But if you're like me, just use an ice cream scoop to get the right amount of your minced meat mix. Try saying that 5 times. The balls will be the ideal shape and your fingers won't get sticky. The easiest and probably the most beautiful way to slice a mango is to turn it into a hedgehog. Wash the mango under running water. Don't squeeze it while doing it. Now put it straight up on a cutting board and cut it into 3 pieces from the top downwards. Just leave that flat pit in the middle piece. There isn't much you can do with it anyway. Now your mango will have 2 cute cheeks. I mean, its fattest parts. Next, make crosswise and lengthwise cut in the mango cheeks. Leave some even distance between the incisions and don't go all the way through the skin. Now press on the back side of the mango until the flesh pokes out. Does it look like something to you? Yep, a hedgehog. Hence the name of this slicing method. The final step will be to slice off the mango cubes into a bowl. Then eat. Now this one has all the potential to become your new breakfast favorite. You can cook an omelet in a mug. Take a large microwave-safe mug and coat the inside of it with olive oil or spray it with cooking spray. Add 2 eggs and 1 tablespoon of milk and mix them with a fork. Now add salt and pepper and any cheese, veggies, and herbs you like. Put it in the microwave on high for 30 seconds. Take it out, stir it with a fork, and then put it back for another 30 seconds. And voila! Your breakfast is served. Oh, be sure to use another mug for your coffee. Otherwise, you get eggs in your coffee, and nobody has a recipe for that.
A beverage as black as ink, useful against numerous health conditions. It's made of water and the fruit from a bush called bunu.
You must have guessed. It's a description of coffee. This is how coffee was described by a German physician who had a 10-year trip to the Near East back in the 16th century. Today, you don't have to venture into the unknown to get a cup of precious liquid. You can easily make it at home or visit the closest coffee shop. As of 2023, in the US alone, there are over 72,000 coffee shops. Imagine the whole world. When you think of coffee, what's the first country that comes to your mind? Italy? Maybe France? But here's the kicker. Actually, Finland is the coffeeiest country in the world. Just picture it. An adult Finn consumes up to 27.5 pounds of coffee per year, while an American only consumes about 11 pounds. Norway proudly takes second place, and Denmark closes the top 3. Italy and France aren't even in the top 10. And by the way, each day, people on our planet drink approximately 1.6 billion cups of coffee. If you're planning to hit some longevity records, coffee may come in handy. There's been research conducted by Harvard Health Publishing stating that those who drink 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day are more likely to have a longer lifespan. Sounds cool, but it's probably not the best option. One of the world's most famous supercentenarians, Jeanne Calment, acknowledged that she would drink coffee with milk for breakfast. And she lived an incredibly long life of 122 years. Not only do people prove that coffee helps with longevity, but cats can also prove it. This is Cream Puff from Texas. It's the cat that lived for 38 years. Jake Perry, Cream Puff's owner, shared some details about his pet's diet. Cream Puff would typically eat dry cat food, eggs, turkey bacon. Alright, nothing special here. But the cat was a big fan of coffee too. Cream Puff preferred coffee with cream. Now, here's a question for you. What color is your coffee mug? Thing is, it matters a lot what you drink from. There are certain colors, for example, lead-based glaze that can release toxic substances in your drink. Mugs glazed with red and orange are most likely to contain lead. So, if you want to play it safe, opt for mugs made of glass, ceramic, or stainless steel. Also, mugs made of plastic or aluminum aren't safe either, as they may release unwanted substances, just like glazed mugs. But the color matters for psychological reasons too. There's been an experiment concerning coffee perception based on the mug color. So, it turns out that if we drink coffee from a white mug, it may seem less sweet than if we drink it from a blue or transparent one. Coffee even played an important role in major sports events. Back in 1932, Brazilian athletes couldn't afford a trip to LA to participate in the Olympic Games. However, a solution was found. The authorities loaded the athletes onto a ship full of coffee. That coffee was sold on the way, so it helped finance their trip. Coffee is also the key to a happy family life, or at least it used to be. In the 15th century in Mesopotamia, coffee was pretty important when it came to marriage. Men would choose their future wives based on how well they could make coffee. Luckily, we have coffee machines for that today, so we choose partners based on their personalities. And in Constantinople, a wife could file for divorce in case her hubby did not provide her with enough coffee. According to industry standards, you need around 56 coffee beans to make a single shot of coffee. Beethoven, yes, I'm talking about one of the main hitmakers of all time, would count 60 beans precisely to brew his morning coffee. I guess it was more of a ritual than a particular recipe. Hey, do you have any rituals for your morning, Joe? Another hitmaker, Johann Sebastian Bach, even dedicated a cantata to coffee, which he called Coffee Cantata. Pretty straightforward, huh? The cantata tells about coffee dependence. Even though black coffee is supposedly the most common type out there, pretty much everyone tried cappuccino at least once. By the way, it got its name because of the final color the drink has. It's a soft brownish shade, very much similar to the color of the capuchin robe. Plus, the robe has a hood, and the word hood translates to Italian as cappuccio. Now the name finally makes sense. Those who don't like to spend time brewing coffee often opt for the instant variety. Let's say happy birthday to instant coffee. It's soon to turn 116 years old. It was invented in 1907, and up until the 1970s, many consumers would criticize it for having an inferior taste. However, in the 1970s, the technology changed, and the manufacturers claimed it tasted almost like freshly brewed coffee. Also, instant coffee created another popular thing: coffee vending machines. The first prototype was invented back in 1947, and they've been with us ever since the 1950s. There are also some products you don't really want to combine coffee with. Number 1. Meat. The logic is simple. Coffee can absorb zinc in the body. Therefore, it's not the best choice to have coffee after grabbing something that contains zinc. I'm talking about red meat, oysters, and beans. Number 2. Fried food. Such dishes tend to contain a lot of so-called bad fats. And once you combine them with caffeine, this mix increases the cholesterol levels in your body. Number 3 may come as a surprise, but still, coffee and milk aren't the best match. Coffee doesn't let the calcium absorb, so technically, you just don't get many nutrients from the milk. Japan seems like the perfect place for those who love coffee. I mean, do you know any other place where you can literally bathe in coffee? Me neither. So this hot springs spa and water amusement park near Tokyo got famous for its extraordinary hot tubs. There are 26 baths in total, and they're filled with coffee, green tea, and many other drinks. Only fresh ingredients are used, and the baths get refilled every day. So to make a coffee tub, they brew coffee beans with water from natural hot springs. By the way, the price is pretty reasonable. An adult ticket costs about $36. If you tried to make a coffee tub yourself, you'd probably spend more. Time to debunk another myth. Decaf coffee does have caffeine. A middle-sized decaf drink has about 7 milligrams of caffeine, while regular coffee has about 7. Yep, 10 times less, but it's enough to disrupt your sleep. As for classic coffee, remember that caffeine has a 6-hour half-life, so it takes about 12 hours to fully eliminate it from your body. Coffee is a no-go both before you go to sleep and right after you wake up. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is not only responsible for stress, but for sleep cycles too. It spikes between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., so a cup of coffee only adds to anxiety in the morning. Grab it when the cortisol is at its lowest. It also spikes between noon and 1 p.m., and between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. No coffee at this time. Many people believe coffee is not the healthiest drink, opting for good quality water or other beverages. Still, if you just can't say no to your guilty pleasure, try buying a thermocup and brewing coffee at home. You'll save money and nature, since the disposable coffee cups aren't recyclable, and it takes at least 20 years for them to decompose. A pop-in in a coffee shop may be your daily ritual, but have you ever counted how much you spend on your morning habit? Millennials spend over $2,000 a year on coffee, investing sometimes more than they do in their retirement.
All right, you're going through the veggie bin in your fridge, and there it is. Among uneaten fruits and vegetables, lying there, rotting in the crisper, as a constant reminder of that healthy diet you promised yourself you'd start on Monday. That asparagus you got at the grocery store a week ago. Yeah. Okay, here's some motivation. Asparagus is packed with these wonderful things called antioxidants. They help lower the harmful effects of, basically, anything, including stress. And if you're forever struggling to decrease the number on the scale, asparagus could be just what you need. It's about 94% water and has as few as 32 calories in a 1-cup serving. That, and the body digests asparagus slowly. So, after eating just a handful, you'll keep feeling full in between meals. That means no more reaching for that midday snack of chips and cookies. Bingo! Hey, if you're like me and tired of getting seasonal flu and colds, then crunch on some carrots. They're loaded with vitamins A and C, which are must-haves for your immune system. Now, don't count on tossing your glasses after getting perfect vision with your new carrot diet. That's a myth. They won't improve your eyesight, but the antioxidants in them do protect your eyes from the types of light that can damage them. Oh yeah, and you might start turning orange if you eat more than 10 carrots a day for a few weeks. If you're a fan of Willy Wonka, now you can flash an Oompa Loompa vibe. If pasta is your guilty pleasure, well, it's not all that bad. First, it doesn't have much fat in it. Plus, it keeps you full for longer. And we already know the perks of that. Just be sure to check if your sauce is good. Opt for mayonnaise-free versions, and make sure your pasta is whole grain. Plenty more junk foods you can reach for without feeling guilty. Popcorn is packed with fiber, which, yet again, keeps you full and is great for your gut. I'm talking digestion. Though your favorite movie snack could also help you lose that spare tire too. It's surprisingly low in calories. Well, before you put the butter on it. Even more shocking, popcorn is good for stress. Yes, the thing that makes us all want to tear our hair out wreaks havoc on the body even at the cellular level. Antioxidants help repair that damage. And here's a tip to keep it healthy. Don't go too far with salt and butter. It's better to have it a bit bland. Now, you'll really like this. M&Ms may not be the healthiest sweets, but their blue dye is supposedly kinda magical. Some researchers claim this blue coloring provides a better chance of recovery after spinal injuries. Or you can just skip the spinal injuries if you prefer. How about a peanut butter sandwich? Good news! A standard 2 tablespoon serving of peanut butter has just 3 grams of saturated fat. That's the bad one that blocks blood vessels. And about 12 grams of unsaturated fat. The good kind your body needs. Olive oil, for example, has the same ratio. To make it even healthier, go for unsalted peanut butter and put it on whole grain bread. Regular butter is heavy in bad fats, but it can also help your body better absorb important vitamins like A, D, E, and K. A tip if you're worried about gaining a few extra pounds, opt for whipped butter. It has fewer calories. That's because it's full of air. Any ketchup is loaded with most of the good things any regular tomato has. Your heart likes it, and it can help fight stress. Yes, those magical antioxidants yet again. Try to opt for organic ketchups if you can. They're made from real healthy tomatoes with richer nutrients. At least that's what a recent study from Spain found. And as one of the world's leading tomato producers, they probably know what they're talking about. Sweet potatoes don't have many calories despite their sweetness, but they're rich in a lot of good things for you, like iron, copper, and potassium. It's also full of vitamin B6. That helps your body produce the happiness hormone serotonin. Plus, you'll get 120% of your daily recommended amount for vitamin A. You know, the thing your immune system craves. It's also great for moisturizing your skin and improving complexion. Bacteria and food usually aren't a good mix. Yeah, blame it for all those rotten vegetables in your fridge. But in sauerkraut, they're the perfect match. In fact, people do need bacteria for healthy digestion, but they need the right kind. Sauerkraut helps keep bad bacteria out of your gut, which makes your digestive system work even better. If you're having rice, opt for the brown kind. While white rice is processed, the husk is removed and the rice is polished. The problem is, up to 80% of the B vitamins get unintentionally eliminated too. Other vitamins get completely taken out. Plus, brown rice has more fiber, keeping you feeling nice and full between meals. Got some motion sickness or feeling nauseous? Grab a serving of ginger. And here's a strange one. Ginger helps get rid of body odor. First, the root heats you up and makes you sweat. Nasty toxins in the body make their way out through the sweat, and any unpleasant odors disappear. Ginger is also a natural antibiotic and antioxidant. Take a break from regular water every now and then with coconut water. You still get the hydration you need, plus some added benefits. It's a great source of essential minerals, especially for your body's nervous and muscular systems. Many experts even recommend it as a much better alternative to sugary sports drinks. Sardines are packed with nutrients and even improve blood flow. They have a lot of calcium, tons of protein, yet few calories. Protein is a must for maintaining muscle mass and boosting muscle growth. If you're looking to bulk up and stay that way, there you go, sardines. Another tiny fish that proves size doesn't matter is the anchovy. They too are loaded with protein, calcium, and omega-3 fatty acids, just like any big fish. Hey, order some anchovy pizza next time. If you're lactose intolerant but want to benefit from dairy products, try some kefir. This fermented milk is full of bacteria. Yeah, don't be scared, it's the good kind that may help eliminate or reduce lactose intolerance problems. Try replacing your daily black tea or coffee with some rooibos for a couple weeks. It's a plant used to make red tea, and several studies have linked it with good heart and kidney health. It's a great alternative if you have a bad reaction to caffeine. Red tea doesn't have any. A nice bonus? It has 0 calories, so if you're on a diet, give it a try. If you still avoid dark poultry meat, you may want to reconsider. Sure, light meat is a healthy choice, no argument here. But the fat in the darker parts contains a hormone that stimulates the digestion of fat and protein. Meat from the leg is also packed with taurine, which is essential for good metabolism and digestion. Oats are packed with a whole laundry list of vitamins, that's a given. But they're a must for weight loss. Full of fiber that keeps you energized and full, they also contain more protein and good fats than other grains. Bottom line, oatmeal is one of the healthiest breakfasts you can have, and it's quick and easy to make. Even though coconut oil contains some bad saturated fat, it's still good for your weight and energy levels. Plus, these are fats that can be easily digested. Coconut oil also helps the body burn fat and provides the brain with quick energy, not to mention the hair and skin benefits of it. Rub some on your face or all down your hair from root to tip. It's very moisturizing. There's one yummy way to lose weight if you're a fan of spicy food. Use hot sauces. They add the flavor you love and help cut down your appetite. It's all because of the capsaicin they contain. It's usually in chili peppers. This compound lowers the hunger hormone ghrelin in your body while raising the level of the hormone that's in charge of suppressing your appetite. Woo, double whammy! Spices such as cumin and turmeric are healthier than you might have thought. Turmeric has potent antiviral properties and acts as an anti-inflammatory agent. Cumin is also good at combating bad bacteria, and it's super heart healthy. And now, I'm hungry. Finish clearing out your crisper, and I'm off to lunch. Bye-bye!
Many people believe our ancestors were monosyllabic grunters, but according to a new study from the University of Western Australia, this might not be the case. The primary purpose of any language is to convey some meaning, right? So, researchers believe that nonverbal communication most likely came before oral language. To test this, they asked a group of people to play a communication game similar to charades. They put people speaking different languages and from different cultures in one room and told them to communicate through gestures. No grunts allowed. The results were astonishing. Scientists confirmed that many gestures apparently have universal meaning. This way, people understand each other more easily than with any other type of vocalization. If I make the shape of a heart with my hands, you'll get what I mean, right? Speaking of languages, did you know that the last letter added to the English alphabet wasn't Z? It was actually J. It's also no coincidence that I and J are side by side. They started out as the same letter. J was just a prettier way of writing I. With time, J got its own phoneme and became a separate letter all on its own. Bees are fascinating creatures. They're very important for people. For one thing, it's their delicious honey. But they are the best pollinators too. We need them to keep restoring our food supplies. Some people may be afraid of their stingers, but honeybees will only sting you if they feel threatened. The worst part is that bees never survive after stinging you. These insects can't pull their barbed stinger out of your skin. And this stinger is part of the bee's digestive tract, nerves, and muscles. After losing all that, the tiny creature can't really make it out alive. The filling between Kit Kat wafers is made from other Kit Kats. When something goes wrong during the production, for example, a Kit Kat bar has too many bubbles or other imperfections, nothing goes to waste. Such sweets get melted into a paste, and then these substandard Kit Kats are used to fill in other Kit Kat bars. Oreology is a field of science that studies Oreos. Yes, the cookies. The flow and fracture of Oreos are the subject of several scientific experiments. Researchers are doing everything in their power to answer this question. Why does all the cream remain only on one side of the Oreo? Grab an Oreo and break it apart the way you normally do it. See what I mean? Rheologists are physicists who study complex fluids. After analyzing the Oreo filling, they classified it as a flowable soft solid. These are fluids that are soft when you don't disturb them and flow when they're under a large amount of stress. No, that doesn't mean Oreos are literally stressed. This means that the cream on the inside will behave according to the pressure you apply while opening a cookie. The trick that will help you distribute the cream is a simple twist. If you twist an Oreo slowly and steadily, this will reduce the stress and most likely let the cream stay on both sides of the cookie. Try it out for yourself and let me know if it works for you. Meanwhile, Oreologists have developed a special machine to do the testing. Ever heard of an Oreometer? It was designed specifically to twist Oreos at an optimum speed and angle. Way to go, cookie science! It's a beautiful afternoon, and you're looking at the sky. Wait, what are those tiny dots traveling in squiggly lines? They're only visible for a short moment. You might even mistake them for mosquitoes. Those are your white blood cells. They're moving inside your capillaries running through the front part of the retina in your eyes. The funny thing is, most people don't notice the dots until someone asks them to pay attention. The Ring of Fire is not only the name of a popular song, it's also a horseshoe-shaped area in the Pacific Ocean. It's about 25,000 miles long and contains around 450 volcanoes. It's the most seismically active place on Earth. Over 75% of all active and sleeping volcanoes in the world are located in the Ring of Fire. No wonder around 90% of all earthquakes happen in this area. Oh, and by the way, the deepest trench on the planet is also located there. The Mariana Trench is one of the most famous features of the Ring of Fire. Its deepest point, the Challenger Deep, lies 36,070 feet below sea level. Funny fact, before color television appeared in the 1950s, 75% of people claimed they saw black and white dreams. But these days, the same study has found out that only 12% of people still dream in black and white. Scientists think they've found an explanation for this. It turns out that those who grew up watching black and white television more often have monochrome dreams. Why so serious? In the 1800s, having a photograph of yourself was a big luxury. Smiling in pictures was considered childish and even impolite. That and, well, a lack of proper dental hygiene. Photographers told these people posing for their pictures to say prunes instead of cheese. This word kept people's mouths shut. That's why all our ancestors look as if they've eaten something sour before posing for a photo. When going somewhere by city bus, you don't have to wear a seatbelt. You might have thought that this goes against every traffic rule you can imagine, but that's not exactly the case. There are several reasons why buses have no seatbelts. In case of an emergency, passengers need to be able to get off as fast as possible. If they have their seatbelts on, they'll waste precious time unbuckling them. Secondly, a bus is a heavy vehicle. In case of a crash, it stops more slowly than a car. So, even though the passengers will feel the impact, they won't get seriously hurt. That's also the reason why people are allowed to remain standing on a moving bus. Imagine you're on a date and have accidentally, or not, ordered a garlic pizza. You check your pockets and, oh no, you haven't brought your breath mints with you. No worries, this little trick can help you get out of trouble. All you need to do is order a cucumber salad or anything with celery. These fibrous vegetables can wash away odor-causing bacteria and help you get rid of bad breath. Try holding a slice of cucumber between your tongue and the roof of your mouth. It'll be the same or even better than a breath mint. Here's a riddle for you. A pointy mustache, melting clocks, and the Chupa Chups logo. What do these things have in common? It turns out Salvador Dali was the very person who designed the logo of Chupa Chups. The surrealist artist also suggested that the logo should be placed on top of the lollipop so people could see it at all times. Lady Liberty, when it first arrived in New York, wasn't green. It was the same color as a penny, copper that is. It turned green over time due to the process known as oxidation. But it still looks amazing, right? The difference between the American and European chocolate does exist. But why don't they taste the same, you might ask? The answer is simple: different regulations. European chocolate has to contain at least 14% of dry milk solids, while the minimum amount in the US is 12%. This means European chocolate is kinda creamier. It's also more chocolatey since it contains more cocoa. Experts had been experimenting with the potato chip shape until they finally got the ideal formula. That curvy shape we associate with chips has a scientific name. This shape helps prevent big problems. If chips were shaped in a different way, they would immediately break into pieces once put into a bag. But the curvy shape helps them remain in one piece. You might have noticed a similar approach in architecture when domes and arches strengthen the structure of a building.
Okay, I'll say it. Which came first, a chicken or an egg? And what will disappear first? Well, let's imagine it will be an egg. At some point, all the chicken eggs on the planet disappear just like that. Humanity will lose the omelet and delicious pastries. But the worst thing is that the chickens will lose the ability to reproduce. They will disappear from the face of the earth forever. And this is an absolute tragedy because chickens are one of the most fantastic birds in the world, and people will realize this as soon as they lose them. So let's start. The eggs have disappeared. The morning on the farms began with chicken screams. It seems the birds have gone mad. They crow and cackle non-stop. Farmers don't know what's going on. They launch soporific gas into the chicken coops to calm the birds. When they fall asleep, people check what's wrong with them and discover that all the eggs have disappeared. And this is happening all over the world. The shares of chicken enterprises are collapsing. The bakery stops working because baking without eggs is not so delicious. And then serious problems begin. Billions of chickens wake up and find that their eggs are gone. Their offspring are gone. The chickens are terrified. They think people stole it from them. Birds get angry, attack farmers, and escape from coops. People don't take any measures since they don't want to harm the birds. They shouldn't be stressed. Let them throw out all the emotions. Perhaps those are the last chickens on Earth, so humanity lets them enjoy their freedom. In addition, all coops are now useless. It's not profitable to keep chickens there. But they don't need freedom. They need eggs. Chickens cover the fields like a giant blanket. They run past forests and clearings. It seems that this is the dream of any wolf. But as soon as this beast appears on the horizon, the chickens immediately attack it. Wolf packs can't withstand millions of chickens, so they retreat. Then the chickens come to the cities. Scientists are trying to solve the problem of missing eggs. They want to clone chickens, and until they do, people are forbidden to catch them. All the streets belong to these birds. The cars' horns and police sirens mix with the loud clucking of chickens. The metropolis turns into a huge coop. Billions of feathers fly in the air. These birds peck trees, wheels on cars, ruin shops, and tear packages with grain. People are hiding in houses. Chickens flood every building in the city. Worldwide news talks about the chaos that the chickens have created. But then they calm down. The chickens forget that they have lost their offspring. They're not angry anymore. Now they're quietly walking the streets. People come out of hiding and start living with chickens in peace and harmony. Meanwhile, the prices of the remaining eggs in stores are increasing hundreds of times. Now, you need to pay at least $1,000 to eat an omelet. But of course, it doesn't last long. After 2 months, all the eggs get spoiled. Sooner or later, the world loses the omelet. Croissants, cakes, buns, donuts, and other pastries lose their great taste. Cooks can't bake delicious food without egg yolk. Dishes lose their tenderness, splendor, and shape. Some cooks replace chicken eggs with goose and quail eggs, but it's much more challenging to get them than chicken eggs. Prices are rising every day. People don't buy croissants with coffee anymore. Many bakeries are losing profits. People learn to live without egg yolk, but then everyone forgets about it. Chickens live side by side with city residents. There are fewer and fewer birds left. They grow old, but new ones aren't born. And at this moment, everyone begins to realize that these cute birds can disappear from the face of the earth forever. There will be no more morning crowing, no more cute little yellow chickens. There will be no more coops and feathers. Almost the entire population of the planet becomes vegetarian to support chickens mentally. People didn't realize how much they love these birds. Humanity is watching with tears the last years of the oldest chickens. Farmers are in a severe depression. They remember how they went to the coop every morning and collected eggs. Now they can find nothing but cobwebs and straw. People in cities make chicken tattoos and draw graffiti with birds on the walls. Sculptors create beautiful statues of chickens. People clean chickens' feathers, feed them the best grains, and create fake golden eggs to reduce their stress levels. The most fabulous directors make movies about chickens. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars to develop computer models of talking birds. Musicians and beatmakers record chicken sounds and create unique songs. Every person considers it their duty to take care of a chicken. They live with birds as pets, walk with them, take selfies, and record videos. Now the chickens are absolute superstars. Of course, pigeons, crows, sparrows, and other birds don't like this. They don't get enough food and attention from people. Birds fly away from megacities. Now only running chickens remain on the streets. But unfortunately, they can't live forever. Chickens are getting old. They don't move as fast as they used to. They develop illnesses and injuries. The best veterinarians are fighting for the life of every bird. They perform complex operations and install prostheses to cure sick chickens. Billionaires invest a lot of money to prolong the life of these animals. They use the most advanced technologies in genetic engineering and cybernetics. And now, the first cyborg chickens appear. They have metal beaks, laser red eyes, polyurethane claws, and wings made of ultralight carbon steel. Scientists try to connect to the bird brain's neurons to find out what the chicken is thinking about. A special program simulates the brainwaves and turns them into sound. People hear their thoughts, but they don't think about anything except co. Chickens turned into mechanized machines, but their brains are still organic. By this time, scientists have created chicken clones. They are as natural as real birds, but they can't lay eggs. Fewer and fewer chickens walk the streets every day. There are thousands, then hundreds, then only dozens of them. Finally, there are only 2 chickens left. They go off into the sunset. People are watching their last journey. They mourn and weep with grief. The birds are moving away and disappearing into the horizon. People will remember this day forever, the final day of the last chickens. In this sad time, scientists have found a way out. They have uncovered the chicken DNA gene, which means they can create these birds anew. Biologists are building the oldest DNA genome, the genome from which the evolution of chickens began. Scientists put all the genetic information inside an artificial egg and wait. And finally, the moment of truth has come. Cracks appear on the egg. The little chicken comes out of the shell in its original evolutionary form. And this is a little Tyrannosaurus. It turns out that this dinosaur is the ancestor of the modern chicken. T-Rex has a similar body shape. It moves like a chicken. Over millions of years of evolution, the ancient lizard has shrunk in size. They lost their scales and grew feathers. Then they got a beak instead of toothy jaws. Scientists are growing a Tyrannosaurus. It's getting bigger and bigger every month. People create huge farms to keep the dinosaurs there. Lizards begin to multiply. People don't know how to control them. Some giant reptiles escape from farms and wreak havoc in cities. In theory, a Tyrannosaurus takes tens of millions of years to turn into a chicken again. No one is ready to wait that long. Everyone wants the chickens back as soon as possible. Fortunately, scientists managed to speed up the process. Decades pass. Tyrannosaurs are shrinking in size. Accelerated evolution turns them into birds. And finally, people get those chickens that they lost. They're laying eggs again. Harmony and happiness have returned to the world. But then, pigs started disappearing, and with it, bacon. Breakfast was broken once again. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.